Chapter 30. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. On Sunday afternoon, after the remedial classes were over, when Wei's driver sent Yuiching home, Wei Lizho also got into the car. In the rear compartment, Wei Lizho glanced at Yuiching, hesitant to speak. "Yuiching, can I?" "No, shut up." Yuiching ruthlessly interrupted Wei Lizho's words. "Wei Lizho. I haven't said what I want to say yet." Yuiching glanced at Wei Lizho. He could guess what Wei Lizho wanted to say without even thinking about it. "Yuiching. I have already rejected Yi Panbai, and I have no plans to give Yi Panbai extra lessons in the future. But if you emphasize it in my ear again, I may change my mind." Wei Lizho. At the same table, can you repeat what you just said? Yuiching. Why? Wei Lizho took out his mobile phone and said to Yuiching. "I want to record this to make Yi Panbai completely give up. He is still ruthless, and he is eyeing you." Yuiching. In fact, Yuiching didn't think he was so attractive. In his opinion, after Yi Panbai was rejected by him, he probably lost his mind a long time ago. The reason why Yi Panbai still brings up this matter in front of Wei Lizho from time to time is just to play tricks on Wei Lizho and see that he is anxious. Yuiching glanced at Wei Lizho, and couldn't help helping his forehead. Yui checked and turned on the phone screen, and sent Yi Panbai a private chat message for the first time. Yuiching. Don't tease Wei Lizho with tutoring anymore. Yi Panbai happened to be playing with his mobile phone, so he immediately replied to Yuiching. Yi Panbai. Why? Yuiching. There is no reason. Yi Panbai. What if I don't listen? Yuiching. When you don't do your homework or forget to do it in the future, don't ask me to borrow the answer. Go to Ling Heek. Yi Panbai. Got it. Yi Panbai looked at Yuiching's threatening words on the chat interface, curled his lips angrily and complained. Really, I finally found this routine Wei Lizho's method. Can't I make my happiness last longer? Wei Lizho quickly sent Yuiching downstairs to his house. Wei Lizho. See you tomorrow. Yuiching nodded lightly and got out of the car with her school bag. After watching Yuiching walk into the corridor, Wei Lizho asked the driver to drive away. After the car drove a certain distance, Wei Lizho glanced casually out of the corner of his eye, and only then noticed that a Rubik's Cube had fallen on the position where Yuiching was sitting just now. Wei Lizho frowned, brought the Rubik's Cube over, and muttered, could it be that Yuiching's school bag didn't zip up properly and accidentally fell out? Wei Lizho remembered that this Rubik's Cube was often played by Yuiching. Thinking of how much Yuiching valued the Rubik's Cube in his daily life, Wei Lizho thought for a while, and asked the driver to turn around and go back. Yu family. As soon as Yuiching stepped into the door of Yu's house, he saw Yu's father sitting in the living room with a dark face, and Yu's mother also had an ugly expression. "Father," Yu said in a rough voice, "is it your rich desk mate who brought you back downstairs just now?" Ednl.co with a cold face, Yui ignored his question and walked straight to his room. "Stop!" Yu's father roared angrily, and ordered Yuiching. "You give this rich young master extra lessons, shouldn't you use some money to supplement the family?" The door of Yu's room was very thin, and Yu Weiyun was hiding in the room at this time, and could hear the movement outside clearly. Hearing what Yu's father said to Yuiching, a happy and smug smile appeared on his face. Yuiching glanced indifferently at the closed door of Yu Weiyun's room, then turned to Yu's father and Yu's mother. "So it was Yu Weiyun who told you about this, right?" When Yu's mother heard Yuiching mention Yu Weiyun, she hurriedly opened her mouth to explain for him. "It was I who accidentally heard him call with a friend, and that's how I found out about it." Yuiching curled the corners of his lips coldly. What a coincidence. Father Yu slapped the table heavily, explained to him what to do so much. Father Yu said as a matter of course. "Since your family at the same table has money, then his family should give you a lot of tuition fees. You can leave a few hundred yuan as living expenses, and hand over the rest to supplement the family's expenses." When Father Yu thought that he was about to make such a windfall, he immediately felt better. He even started to plan how he would spend the money in his mind. The first thing was to pay off some of the gambling debts he owed. Impossible. Yui flatly rejected Father Yu's cheeky request. Say it again. Yu's father stood up suddenly, his eyes were as wide as copper bells, and he looked at Yuiching angrily. Seeing this, Yu's mother hurriedly grabbed Yu's father's hand. Don't be so quick-tempered, why don't you talk to the child well? Yu's mother looked at Yuiching, and said in a soft voice. Iching, the family doesn't have that much money now. If you can help the family reduce the burden, parents will be very grateful for your efforts. You are a generous and kind child, do you understand our difficulties? Yuiching's eyes were indifferent, unmoved at all. He had already seen countless times of Yu's father and Yu's mother playing both hard and soft ways. Seeing that Yuiching showed no sign of letting go, Father Yu's anger suddenly started to ignite when he thought that he might not get the money, and he suppressed his anger and asked, I'll give you another chance, are you sure you don't know? Change idea. Yui looked at him coldly, and the silence represented his attitude. Yu's father was even annoyed by Yuiching's knowing eyes. Yuiching's eyes seemed to tell him that in Yuiching's eyes, he is a despicable ugly clown. Yu's father was furious, and he yelled angrily, if you don't pay me, get out. I won't let you live here. Yuiching walked into the room, and closed the door with a snap. Seeing this, Father Yu sat on a chair in the living room, and cursed in the direction of Yuiching's room. Since you are so kind, why are you staying here so brazenly? Yu's mother persuaded softly from the side. Don't be so angry, tell him well, he will change his mind. Yu Weiyun listened to the voice of Yu's father scolding Yuiching outside. He half-laid on the bed and played with his mobile phone comfortably, shaking Erlang's legs triumphantly. Just when Yu's father was about to yell at Yuiching again, the door of Yuiching's room was suddenly pulled open. Yuiching carried a school bag and a small luggage bag in his hand, walked through the living room, and walked straight to the door. Mother Yu exclaimed, Ching, where are you going? Yuiching stopped in her tracks, and opened the luggage bag towards Mother Yu. I bought the clothes here with my own money. You can come and check if you need it. It was clear at a glance in Yuiching's luggage bag that there were only a few simple sets of clothes. Usually in families with multiple children, the clothes that the older ones cannot wear are given to the younger ones. But the Yu family is the opposite. Yuiching's closet is almost full of clothes that Yu Weiyun wears and discards. Yuiching's obsession with cleanliness made him completely unable to accept such things. So when he made his first money as a child, the first thing he did was to buy clothes for himself. Seeing Yuiching's resolute attitude, Mother Yu's eyes flashed a little flustered. She hurriedly stood up, and persuaded. Iching, what your father said just now was angry, and you also know that he has a bad temper. Don't take his angry words seriously, go back to your room. Yu's father sat beside him, his neck stuck, and he didn't say a word. Yuiching pulled up the luggage bag, opened the door of Yu's house, and walked out. With a sound of bang-dang, the door of Yu's house was slammed shut by the wind. Yuiching stood at the stairs, and stared back at the dilapidated iron door. The sound insulation of the iron door was poor, and Yuiching could still clearly hear Yu's father scolding and Yu's mother whispering persuasion in the room. Yuiching withdrew his eyes without the slightest nostalgia, turned around and went down the stairs without looking back. When Yuiching reached the third floor, suddenly, his ears twitched slightly, his brows frowned slightly, and he raised his eyes to look up the stairs. Someone is following him. With a low voice, Yuiching scolded, come out. Yuiching waited silently for the sneaky person who followed behind him to appear. He thought it might be Yu Weiyun or Yu's mother, but he saw Wei Lizho coming out from the corner of the stairs. Yuiching. Why are you here? Wei Lizho scratched his head in embarrassment. This thing seems to have fallen from your school bag onto the car. Wei Lizho handed the Rubik's Cube to Yuiching. Yui Ching touched the zipper of the side grid of the school bag and found that the zipper was open. Thank you. Yui Ching pursed her lips in thanks. He took the Rubik's Cube from Wei Lizhou's hands, stroked the smooth surface of the Rubik's Cube, and stared down at this partner, who had been with him for so many years in Yu's house, then put it back into the school bag and zipped it up again. In the corridor, Wei Lizhou walked quietly beside Yui Ching, only the footsteps of the two of them could be heard from time to time in the dimly lit corridor. Wei Lizhou quietly glanced at Yui Ching. The dim light in the corridor shrouded Yui Ching's indifferent and delicate profile. Wei Lizhou clenched his lips tightly, thinking of the vulgar words he had just heard standing outside the door. He couldn't help clenching his fists tightly, his eyes suddenly turned cold. Wei Lizhou stood outside the door just now and almost listened to the whole process of their quarrel. When Yui Ching walked out of Yu's house, he was afraid of Yui Ching's embarrassment, so he hurriedly hid. Wei Lizhou and the others quickly went down to the first floor, and the driver of the Wei family was parking the car outside the corridor. Yui Ching stood in front of the corridor and said softly to Wei Lizhou, "Go back." Wei Lizhou raised his eyes to stare at Yui Ching, and said in a calm voice, "Then where are you going?" Yui Ching remained silent. He hasn't decided where exactly to go. Yui Ching's silence made Wei Lizhou feel that his heart was suddenly filled with sourness, and this sourness even began to gradually spread from his heart to his whole body. Wei Lizhou quickly suppressed his strange emotions, smiled at Yui Ching, and pretended to be relaxed. "Go to my house tonight. If you go now, you can still catch up with dinner." "No, let's go. Auntie will worry if you go back late." After Yui Ching finished speaking, she turned around and was about to leave. Wei Lizhou stretched out his hand and grabbed Yui Ching's arm. Yui Ching glanced at Wei Lizhou holding his hand. Thinking of Yui Ching's obsession with cleanliness, Wei Lizhou hurriedly let go of his hand with great insight, and persuaded Yui Ching. "It's getting dark now, even if it's a boy, it's dangerous to wander around outside alone. Yui Ching. I'll go to the hotel and get a room." Wei Lizhou had a disapproving expression on his face. "This good hotel is so expensive to stay for one night. And the cheap ones have a bad environment. Think about your cleanliness, and think about the hygienic environment of those hotels. Are you sure you can sleep tonight?" Yui Ching pursed his lips. In fact, he was not at ease even about the hygienic environment of those big hotels. Wei Lizhou's attention was always on Yui Ching. Seeing that his eyes seemed to be a little shaken, he hurriedly climbed up the pole, and said quickly, "Okay, don't worry about it. You can stay at my house tonight, and then leave later. One step is one step." Before Yui Ching could reply, Wei Lizhou pushed and pulled Yui Ching to their car, then quickly opened the door and pushed Yui Ching in. "Wei Jia." When Wei's mother saw Wei Lizhou taking Yui Ching home, her eyes flashed with doubts. Didn't she say that she was going to send someone off? Why did she bring him home again? Although Wei's mother was puzzled, she didn't ask Yui Ching in front of her. She smiled and said to Yui Ching, "You probably haven't eaten dinner yet. Aunt Chen has already cooked the dishes. Tonight it's just the three of us eat." Yui Ching pursed her lower lip slightly, and said, "Sorry, I'm sorry to trouble you." Wei's mother smiled, "Don't be so polite, wash your hands quickly, and get ready to eat. Aunt Chen stewed her best lotus root and watercress soup this afternoon. This soup is Wei Lizhou's favorite. You can try it later, taste, see if it suits your taste." Mother Wei's natural attitude made Yui Ching less uncomfortable. After dinner, Wei Lizhou took Yui Ching to the guest room opposite his room. Wei Lizhou opened the door of the room, and said to Yui Ching, "Auntie washes the sheets and cleans the room basically every week, so you can rest assured." Yui Ching let out a soft, After Wei Lizhou took Yui Ching into the room, he introduced to him. "There are all kinds of toiletries in the bathroom in the room, and towels and toothbrushes are placed in the locker." Wei Lizhou introduced the layout of the room to Yui Ching in detail. After Yui Ching was settled, he saw that Yui Ching was about to take a bath, so he left the room and went downstairs to the living room. Wei's mother was watching TV in the living room at this time, and when she saw Wei Lizho coming down, she called him to her side. "Can you explain to me now, what happened?" Wei Lizho briefly told Mother Wei what he had just heard, and Mother Wei couldn't help frowning when she heard this, and didn't know what to say. Now thinking of Yui Ching's parents, Wei Lizho couldn't help being angry, and complained to Wei's mother. "I really don't understand why my deskmate has such parents. It's just a good bamboo shoot." Mother Wei. "Okay. After all, they are your parents at the same table. You can complain in front of me, don't say it at your table, so as not to make him feel worse." Wei Lizho. "Mom, I'm not a fool, I don't need you to remind me, I know what to do." Mother Wei smiled and rubbed Wei Lizho's head lightly. "It's not easy, Wei Lizho still has such a sensible day." Wei Lizho hummed dissatisfiedly. "Mom, can you think of me better?" Mother Wei stretched out her index finger and shook it. "No." Wei Lizho. The next day, Monday morning. As soon as Yi Panbai walked to the school gate, he saw Wei Lizho get off from Wei's car. He was about to walk over to say hello to Wei Lizho when he saw Yui Ching get off from the other side of the car door. Yi Panbai frowned suspiciously. Why did Yui Ching come to school by Wei Lizho car? Yi Panbai walked up to Wei Lizho and the others, and greeted them. "Morning." Yui Ching nodded slightly in response. Yi Panbai looked at the two and asked suspiciously, "Why did you come here together today?" Wei Lizho didn't know the message Yui Ching and Yi Panbai sent before. Hearing Yi Panbai's question, the alarm rang in his mind. He looked at Yi Panbai warily. "What do you want to do after so many inquiries? Let me tell you, you should give up early. Yui Ching said that he doesn't want to be your tutor. So, even if you keep pestering us, it's also useless work." Yi Panbai glanced at Yui Ching, and Yui Ching ignored his gaze calmly. Yi Panbai. "Don't worry, I don't have this idea anymore." Yi Panbai explained to Wei Lizho in disgust. Wei Lizho was a little skeptical. "Are you serious?" Yi Panbai rolled his eyes. "Really? So, can you tell me why you two come to school together?" "I can't." Wei Lizho mercilessly rejected Yi Panbai. Yi Panbai. Seeing that Wei Lizho didn't say anything, Yi Panbai didn't plan to ask further questions. When the three of them were about to walk towards the school, they saw Yu Weiyun and Zhu Jinyang appearing not far away. As soon as Yu Weiyun saw Yui Ching, he immediately frowned, his voice full of worry and disapproval. "Brother, where did you go last night? You ran away from home without saying anything, and your parents worried about you all night." Yu Weiyun spoke as if Yui Ching was some ignorant child. Wei Lizho felt that the anger in his chest was ignited instantly. "Joke, did he run away from home? Who said that he was told to get out last night? Besides, since you said you were worried about him, why didn't you call him? Now I know it's time to beat me up." Wei Lizho's voice was shrouded in a chill, his brows and eyes were frighteningly cold for an instant, and his eyes were as sharp as the blades after cutting them. Yi Panbai had never seen Wei Lizho like this before, and he couldn't help being caught off guard for an instant. Seeing Wei Lizho's sharp eyes full of cold air, Yu Weiyun was also stunned for a moment. Wei Lizho looked contemptuously at Yu Weiyun, whose face was a little pale from shock, and he curled the corners of his lips sarcastically. "Is your worry about sleeping at home under the covers? Then this kind of family affection is so touching that I don't know what to say." Yu Weiyun opened his mouth, but for a moment he didn't know how to react, and was speechless for a while. Zhu Jinyang couldn't see Yu Weiyun's helpless appearance, and said to Wei Lizho. "Wei Lizho, this is their family's business, why are you meddling so much?" Wei Lizho sneered, "Am I meddling? I'm worried about Yui Ching, Yu Weiyun and his parents, but I don't have such a big face that I can take it to heart." Yu Yiqing glanced at Yu Weiyun who was hiding behind others. He was too lazy to waste time here with Yu Weiyun. Let's go. Yu Yiqing suddenly grabbed Wei Lizhou's arm and led Wei Lizhou to the school. Wei Lizhou followed Yu Yiqing's pulling force and walked forward. But before leaving, he didn't forget to turn his head and give Yu Weiyun a cold snort. Yi Panbai also glanced at Yu Weiyun contemptuously, then trotted away after Yu Yiqing and Wei Lizhou. Yu Weiyun looked at the handsome back of them leaving, and his eyes were slightly red with grievance. Seeing this, Zhu Jinyang naturally excused him repeatedly, and felt sorry for him. And what made Yu Weiyun even more aggrieved was the Sonda interest class on Wednesday. When Wei Lizhou used the name of duels to throw him on the ring again and again, Yu Weiyun was really wronged and wanted to cry. Although he was not really hurt because of the protective gear on his body. But being played by Wei Lizhou like a cat teasing a mouse, Yu Weiyun still couldn't help being resentful and a little bit broken. In the end, Yu Weiyun couldn't help but raised his hand to signal the teacher on the ring. Enduring embarrassment and embarrassment, he whispered in embarrassment. "Teacher, I surrender." After Yu Weiyun got off the ring in despair, Yan Kaichen, who was in class with him, asked him. "Wei Lizhou seems to be targeting you today, what happened?" Yu Weiyun felt so aggrieved at this time, so she told Yan Kaichen the cause of the matter in one go. Of course, he did a lot of adding oil and vinegar to this story. As Yu Weiyun talked, his heart became more and more aggrieved, and he couldn't help complaining, "I really don't understand how Wei Lizhou treats Yu Yiqing so well." After he finished speaking, he immediately realized that he had made a slip of the tongue in front of Yan Kaichen, and he hurriedly made amends. "I mean, they have such a good relationship." Yan Kaichen's expression remained unchanged, and he smiled softly at him, "So Yu Yiqing has been staying at Wei Lizhou's house for a while." Yu Weiyun nodded, "That's right, they go to and from school together every day now." Yan Kaichen said casually, "They have a very good relationship now, if they spend more time together, their relationship should be even better." Yu Weiyun frowned slightly for an instant. Yan Kaichen said again. "However, Yu Yiqing has been living in Wei Lizhou's house like this, doesn't it seem to be a good thing? After all, he is not related to the Wei family, and Wei Lizhou just sits at the same table with him." Yu Weiyun nodded in agreement, "That's the truth. After all, our family has a place to live, and we have been bothering Wei Lizhou's family like this. It is easy for others to say that we are taking advantage of Wei Lizhou's family." After class, Wei Lizhou and Yu Yiqing were walking towards the exit of the training hall when Yu Weiyun and Yan Kaichen suddenly walked in front of them, blocking their way. Wei Lizhou folded his arms around his chest, and curled his lips. "What? You didn't get beaten enough in class, and you still want to come after class?" Yu Weiyun tried hard to calm down the grievance in his heart, and said softly. "You misunderstood, my parents have something to say, please ask me to pass it on to my brother." Yu Weiyun planned to use his parents as his son. Yu Yi said bluntly in a cold voice. "I didn't intend to listen, you can shut up." Yu Weiyun choked on Yu Yiqing's words. He quickly restrained his emotions in a flash, and said to Yu Yiqing as if nothing had happened. "Mom, she has been worried about you these days and kept asking me to call you home. Although Dad didn't say anything, I can see that he has already regretted his past. I'm angry. You also know that he has a bad temper, and sometimes when his temper comes up, he is prone to say hurtful things. His usual work pressure is also very high. As his children, we should also be more sympathetic to him." Yu Yiqing twitched the corners of his mouth mockingly, his brows and eyes were full of sarcasm. Yu Weiyun noticed someone passing by, so she deliberately raised her voice, and said to Yu Yiqing with an aggrieved face. "Brother, I beg you to forgive my parents and come home with me. You have been living in Wei Lizhou's house like this, is not a solution, it is easy to cause trouble for others." Yan Kaichen also echoed. "It's really not very appropriate to keep doing this." Before Yu Yiqing opened his mouth to speak, Wei Lizhou was about to explode. He blurted out, and shouted at Yu Weiyun and Yan Kaichen angrily. None of your business. I have a big house, even if I take in 800 Yu Yikings, it won't be a problem. You control the world and come to my house. It's like a dog taking a mouse, meddling in my own business. Since you are so free, why not go to the road to sweep the street, which can also reduce the burden on sanitation workers? Yu Weiyun's face turned red from being scolded by Wei Lizho. Seeing the people passing by looking at him with surprise, Yan Kaichen's eyes flashed with displeasure. Wei Lizho was still angry after cursing. He gave Yu Weiyun and Yan Kaichen a hard look, turned around and grabbed Yu Yiqing's arm. At the same table, let's go, ignore these two idiots. Yu Yiqing followed Wei Lizho towards the door of the training room. Seeing the two people's backs disappearing in front of her eyes, Yu Weiyun thought of Wei Lizho's scolding just now, and couldn't help but angrily complain to Yan Kaichen. Why does Wei Lizho speak so poorly? Yan Kaichen remained silent, frowning, looking at the back of Wei Lizho and the others leaving with displeasure. On the car home, Wei Lizho was still angry, and kept cursing Yu Weiyun and Yan Kaichen at Yu Yiqing. After Wei Lizho finished cursing, he worriedly told Yu Yiqing. At the same table, you can rest assured to live in my house. My mother likes you now more than my own son. So even if you want to live in my house for the rest of your life, it's completely fine. If you leave, no one in this family can chat with her about 100 Years of Solitude and Homer's epic. Yu Yiqing remained silent and did not respond to Wei Lizho's words. In fact, even if Yu Weiyun hadn't caused this episode today, he would have planned to move out of Yu's house a long time ago. Seeing Yu Yiqing's reaction, Wei Lizho immediately became suspicious. You don't really take that to heart, do you? Yu Yiqing. No. But, it's fine if you don't. We're home, let's get out of the car. Wei Lizho cheerfully opened the door and got out of the car. Yu Yiqing. Why don't you get out of the car? Wei Lizho urged Yu Yiqing from outside the car. Yu Yiqing looked at the cheerful Wei Lizho outside the car, and sighed in his heart, forget it, let's talk to him tonight. Chapter 31. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After dinner, Wei Lizho wanted to go to Yu Yiqing's room to do homework with him, but found that Yu Yiqing was not in the room. Wei Lizho searched up and down the house, only to see Yu Yiqing and Mother Wei taking a walk in the back garden. The evening wind in autumn gently blows the grass and trees in the garden. Mother Wei and Yu Yiqing were walking on the path in the garden. Mother Wei said softly, Qing, I have received your transfer in my bank account today, but the amount of money seems to be a bit wrong. Wei's mother had only lent 1 million to Yu Yiqing before, but she received 15 million in return from Yu Yiqing. Yu Yiqing pursed her lips, Auntie, I plan to move to the school dormitory tomorrow, and the relevant procedures have been applied. Mother Wei smiled helplessly when she saw him deliberately changing the subject. Although she had already made up her mind to transfer the money back to Yu Yiqing, she still followed Yu Yiqing's words and said, if it's okay, remember to come back to play with Auntie often. I didn't expect you to move away so soon. Thinking that with you at my side to supervise, I can rest assured of Wei Lizho's study in the future. Yu Yiqing's brows and eyes were slightly soft, I will still come back on weekend afternoons to make up lessons for Wei Lizho. Mother Wei was a little worried, will giving Wei Lizho extra lessons affect your own affairs? Although Wei's mother didn't know how Yu Yiqing managed to make so much money by doubling 1 million in a short period of time. But she felt Yu Yiqing's extraordinary talent even more. Yu Yiqing explained softly, it doesn't have any influence. Wei Lizho is actually very smart and has a very active mind. It won't take too much effort to give him tutoring. It's really rare to hear someone praise Wei Lizho so much. Mother Wei smiled and asked Yu Yiqing, but, does that kid Wei Lizho not know that you are going to move to the school dormitory? Yu Yiqing nodded lightly, I haven't told him about it yet. I already know. Wei Lizho's voice suddenly sounded behind Wei Mu and Yu Yiqing. Mother Wei and Yui Ching looked back in surprise. Wei Lizho stood expressionlessly not far behind them. Mother Wei said to Yui Ching, "I'll go in first, you can have a good talk with him." After Mother Wei left, Wei Lizho was the first to speak out. "You told me that you wouldn't take what Wei Yun and the others said to heart." Yui Ching pursed her lips. "I really don't care what they say. I applied for a dormitory 2 days ago, but I haven't told you yet. You're moving out tomorrow, but you're only planning to tell me tonight." Wei Lizho lowered his eyes in despair. "Forget it, I should have gotten used to you having this kind of personality." After Wei Lizho finished speaking, he turned around and walked out of the garden quickly. Seeing Wei Lizho's leaving back, Yui Ching opened his lips, trying to call him back, but in the end he just watched his back disappear from his sight. Yui Ching pursed his lips a little at a loss, his eyelids drooped, and his curly black eyelashes fluttered slightly. He didn't expect Wei Lizho to have such a reaction. He is used to being independent, and has long been used to deciding everything by himself, and he has no habit of explaining and discussing things with others in advance. The next morning, when Yui Ching went downstairs with his luggage and school bag, he found only him and Mother Wei on the breakfast table. Yui Ching frowned slightly, greeted Mother Wei, and sat down to eat breakfast. Yui Ching took a sip of soy milk in silence, and couldn't help but focus on the empty chair opposite. If it was usual, Wei Lizho was sitting opposite him, and he started chattering non-stop early in the morning. Once the gate of the conversation was opened, it was like a torrent of river water. Yui Ching pursed her thin lips, and finally couldn't help but asked Mother Wei. "Auntie, Wei Lizho hasn't woken up yet." There was a meaningful smile on Mother Wei's mouth. "He asked for leave today." Yui Ching paused for a moment with his hand holding the spoon, lowered his eyes, and responded softly, "I see." After breakfast, Yui Ching went to school in Wei's car. Classroom. Seeing that Wei Lizho didn't come, Yi Panbai asked Yui Ching, who was sitting on the seat reading a book. "Why didn't Wei Lizho come today?" Ling Heek also cast a puzzled look at Yui Ching. "He asked for leave today." Yi Panbai was helpless. "Of course I know that he asked for leave. I asked him why he asked for leave. Don't you know?" Yui Ching clenched the pages of the book with his fingertips, and said in a low voice, "You can ask him yourself." Yi Panbai. "Why is Yui Ching so weird today?" Yi Panbai. "Okay, I will ask myself." Yi Panbai immediately sent a message to Wei Lizho vigorously. After a while, Yi Panbai yelled. "Wei Lizho replied to me." Ling Heek asked quietly. "What did he say?" Yi Panbai. "He said he had something to do today and couldn't come to class." Hearing this, Yui Ching's amber eyes narrowed slightly, and the fan-like eyelashes cast a gloomy shadow on his eyelids. He turned his head slightly to look at the vacant seat beside him. His eyes suddenly wandered, and his thoughts drifted back to what happened last night. He seemed really made Wei Lizho angry. Afternoon, recess time. Yi Panbai turned his head to Yui Ching and asked, "Yui Ching, what happened to you today?" Yui Ching's voice was indifferent. "It's nothing." Yi Panbai. Who would believe this? Yui Ching was called up to answer questions in class just now, but he was so distracted that he needed the teacher to call his name several times before he got up and stood up. Yi Panbai looked at Yui Ching suspiciously. I don't know if it's his illusion, but Yui Ching seems to be a little different from his usual appearance today. Although he was cold and reticent in the past, the air pressure was not as low as it is today. After the school bell rang, Yui checked and opened Wei Lizho's chat interface on his phone. He stared at the blank chat interface for a long time, and finally put away his mobile phone, picked up his school bag and luggage bag and walked to the dormitory building. Dormitory. After Yui Ching got the dormitory key from the dormitory manager, he carried his belongings and walked towards the 208 dormitory. Jiahai's dormitory is a two-room dormitory with separate desks and wardrobes. As soon as Yuiching walked to the door of the dormitory, he heard a sound of thunder and clang coming from inside. Yuiching paused. He remembered that when he applied for the dormitory, there was no one in dormitory 208. Yuiching stood in front of the door, he raised his hand and knocked on the door. The knock on the door silenced the movement inside the door for an instant. Seeing that the people inside didn't come to open the door for a long time, Yuiching took out the key directly and opened the door of the dormitory. As soon as he opened the door, surprise! It was Wei Lizhou's bright smiling face that greeted Yuiching. Yuiching. Is that why you asked for leave today? Wei Lizhou laughed loudly. How about it, are you scared by me and think I'm really angry? Humph, this is a small revenge to hide from you. I was afraid last night that I would walk half a step too slowly, and directly laughing out loud almost made my stomach explode. Yuiching pursed her lips tightly, but there was still a faint smile at the end of her eyes. I heard it last night. Yuiching. What did you hear? Wei Lizhou looked smug. I heard you praise me for being smart. He, you are very discerning at the same table, you are worthy of being my tablemate with Wei Lizhou. Seeing his smug look, Yuiching couldn't help but said. I just said politely, you don't have to take it seriously. You are not a person who can say polite words. Wei Lizhou smiled, and patted Yuiching's shoulder. You just praised me a few words, why are you ashamed to admit it? Yuiching. He just didn't want to see Wei Lizhou with his tail up, so he didn't want him to hear it. Yuiching put the luggage bag and school bag on the table, and noticed that there was a computer on each of the two desks, and the quilt and bed sheets were brand new. In his breath, he could faintly smell the clean smell of disinfectant. Yuiching looked at Wei Lizhou. You have been cleaning the dormitory all day today. Wei Lizhou nodded proudly. Yes, everything is clean now. I have washed, dried and disinfected the sheets and quilts. Whether it is the room, the bathroom or the balcony outside, they were all mopped with disinfectant. Yuiching looked at Wei Lizhou's handsome eyebrows and eyes with a bright smile, and a touch quietly flashed in his eyes. Wei Lizhou looked at Yuiching, and asked him for credit. How about it, do you feel very lucky to have me as a roommate? Yuiching lowered his head, avoiding Wei Lizhou's clear gaze. He pursed his lips and said in a low voice, it's okay. What's okay? I'm very okay. Wei Lizhou was very dissatisfied with Yuiching's answer. Yuiching lowered his head and pretended to be busy arranging things, his light-colored thin lips curved slightly. After Yuiching organized his clothes, he planned to put them in the closet. As soon as he took a step towards the wardrobe, Wei Lizhou's expression suddenly changed, and he rushed over to block the way in front of him. Yuiching. What's wrong with you? Wei Lizhou smiled awkwardly. You must be tired after a day of class today. How about you go out for a walk and let me help you put your clothes in the closet? After Wei Lizhou finished speaking, he reached out to take the folded clothes from Yuiching. Yuiching turned slightly to one side, avoiding his extended hand. No need, I can do it myself. Yuiching bypassed Wei Lizhou and walked to the wardrobe. He looked at the two large wardrobes on the left and right, then turned to look at Wei Lizhou. Which wardrobe is mine? You can pick one at will. Wei Lizhou's voice was weak. When Yuiching saw Wei Lizhou's appearance, suspicion flashed in his eyes. He walked to the closet on the left, and as soon as he opened the closet door, a pile of things fell out of the crowded closet in an instant. The closet is full of clothes and daily necessities. Wei Lizhou covered his eyes with his hands, and couldn't bear to look directly at him. Yuiching. Sure enough, this is Wei Lizhou. Yuiching turned around and looked at Wei Lizhou. So. The same is true for the other wardrobe. Wei Lizhou nodded guiltily. Yuiching took a deep breath. Wei Lizhou cautiously raised his eyes and glanced at Yuiching. I didn't do it on purpose. If you come a little later, everything will be perfect now. Wei Lizhou twitched a small finger. this is just a little blemish in my perfect performance. A little helplessness flashed in Yui Qing's eyes, come here and clean up together. After tidying up for a while, Wei Lizho looked at the picture where all the things in the closet were arranged in an orderly manner, and took a photo with his mobile phone with a sense of accomplishment. Yui Qing looked at Wei Lizho, who was busy taking pictures. Aside from the closet, you probably didn't prepare surprises for me in other places, right? Wei Lizho paused, then turned to look at Yui Qing. If I said that the under the bed also needs to be tidied up, how would you react? Yui Qing glanced at the completely dark sky outside, then looked at Wei Lizho again, and said slowly. What do you think I will react? Sensing the cold murderous look in Yui Qing's eyes, Wei Lizho hurriedly said, just kidding, just kidding. Am I such an unreliable person? Yui Qing raised his eyelids and glanced at him, yes. Wei Lizho chuckled, it's so rare that I can actually see you at the same table playing tricks on this day. When Yui Qing heard Wei Lizho's words, he was stunned for a moment, but when he saw Wei Lizho's teasing smile again, he felt a little embarrassed again. Yui Qing took out her pajamas, pursed her lips and said, I'm going to take a shower. Wei Lizho smiled and waved his hands, go, go. 30.6 Strategies, running is the best strategy. Seeing Wei Lizho's teasing eyes, Yui Qing couldn't help but glared at him angrily. The next day, Yu Weiyun came to Yui Qing and Wei Lizho's table again. Before Yu Weiyun could speak, Wei Lizho spoke first. Now Yui Qing has moved to the school, are you satisfied? Seeing that the people around him were looking at him all of a sudden, Yu Weiyun's eyes flashed with embarrassment, and he opened his mouth to argue. I didn't come to ask this. Wei Lizho leaned against the back of the chair, crossed his legs, then what are you doing here? We don't welcome you here. Yu Weiyun didn't want to quarrel with Wei Lizho, so he looked at Yui Qing and asked, you made that call, right? Yui raised his eyes lightly, so what's the matter? Yu Weiyun's eyes instantly became more angry, filled with raging anger. Wei Lizho looked at Yui Qing with a puzzled expression, did you do something great? Yui said in a calm voice. Don't they like to meddle in other people's business, I'm just trying to follow suit. Yu Weiyun gritted his teeth angrily, stared at Yui Qing, he growled a little out of composure. What dissatisfaction do you have with me? You can directly attack me, why are you venting your anger on Zhu Jinyang? If you hadn't gone to talk to his grandfather Su, he will not be locked up by his grandfather today. It is because of you, even if he comes to school tomorrow, he will have to transfer to another class in the future. Yui Qing, you are really too much. Yui Qing understood Zhu Jinyang's grandfather's nature. So he made a phone call and brought the matter of Zhu Jinyang and Yu Weiyun's friendship to Zhu Jinyang's grandfather. Zhu Jinyang's grandfather found out everything when he checked, including how Yu Weiyun relied on Yui Qing to enter school. A person like Yu Weiyun who has no family background and no ability, naturally cannot let Zhu Jinyang and his grandfather take a high look. When Yui Qing heard Yu Weiyun say this, he twitched the corners of his mouth contemptuously, judging from your reaction, my purpose of making you uncomfortable has been achieved, hasn't it? Wei Lizho had already guessed the matter to a great extent, and when he thought that Zhu Jinyang was still in confinement by his grandfather, he immediately laughed gleefully. He patted Yui Qing's shoulder appreciatively. Good job, you are worthy of being my desk mate. You should use an eye for an eye for an eye, and let them know that you are not a soft persimmon that can be manipulated at will. I hope you will continue to work hard in the future and make further progress. Yui Qing. Yui Qing raised his eyes and glanced at Yu Weiyun, his eyes were as cold as frost, I know what you have in mind. If you don't want the bamboo basket to fetch water in the end, you'd better stay away from me in the future. When Yu Weiyun heard Yui Qing's words, his face froze, and his voice was dry. I don't know what nonsense you are talking about. Yui Qing's amber eyes were icy cold, and his voice was flat. Need me to repeat it to you here, to confirm? Yuyi's cold eyes made Yu Weiyun feel that he had seen through all his thoughts that he thought he had hidden well. Suddenly, his heart felt cold. I still have something to do, let's go first. After Yu Weiyun finished speaking, he turned around and walked quickly towards the door of the classroom. His steps were even a little flustered and hurried. Yu Weiyun ran into Yan Kaichen in the corridor just a few steps out of the classroom. Yan Kaichen greeted Yu Weiyun. Yu Weiyun forced himself up and smiled at him. Yan Kaichen asked with concern. What's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell? Yu Weiyun pursed her lips. It's okay, it's just that I feel a little sad because Zhu Jinyang is going to transfer classes. Yan Kaichen. Alright, why did he suddenly change classes? Yu Weiyun. His grandfather seems to know that I have a better relationship with him, so he is a little unhappy. Yan Kaichen patted Yu Weiyun's shoulder comfortingly. Grandpa Zhu is indeed strict with him. But I believe that if you have a chance to meet someday, Grandpa Zhu will definitely like you. Yu Weiyun tried hard to force a smile. I hope so. By the way, I heard that Yu Yiqing has moved to live in the school, right? Yu Weiyun nodded, thinking of Yu Yiqing, he vomited to death. Yan Kaichen smiled, looked at Yu Weiyun, and comforted him in a gentle voice. Don't be unhappy, Zhu Jinyang just transferred to another class. You still have a lot of time to play together after class. It can only be like this. Yu Weiyun looked up at Yan Kaichen. Thank you for your comfort, otherwise I don't know how long I will be sad. Yan Kaichen smiled, it's nothing, you also helped me a lot. Classroom, podium. The head teacher looked at the students in the audience and said. Students, in a few days, the school will hold the autumn sports meeting. Just now the sports committee has sent out the list of sports events. Let's see if there is any event you want to apply for, and then apply for it. To the sports committee. I hope everyone will actively sign up, after all, this is related to the collective honor of our class. Yi Panbai turned around and looked at Wei Lizho. Do you plan to apply for any project? Wei Lizho glanced at the event registration form. Sign up for the 400-meter sprint. I was the champion of this event in my previous school. Yi Panbai nodded, then I will apply for the 200-meter freestyle event. I can swim fairly well. Wei Lizho looked at Yu Yiqing. At the same table, do you plan to apply for any project? Yu Yi turned a page of the book calmly. No. Wei Lizho. Okay. He asked a silly question, and he couldn't imagine Yu Yiqing sweating profusely at the sports meeting. Soon it was the night before the fall sports. In the dormitory, Wei Lizho walked out of the bathroom after taking a shower. Sitting in front of his desk and brushing his hair, he looked at Yu Yiqing who was operating the computer at the opposite desk, and said, at the same table, my 400-meter event tomorrow is in the morning, don't forget to come and watch my race. Yu Yi cleared his throat a little itchy, coughed a few times, and then said softly. I don't remember when I promised you to go to the game. Wei Lizho chuckled, I'm your tablemate and roommate, with our relationship, don't you have the heart not to watch my game? Yu Yiqing. Yu Yiqing raised his eyes and looked at Wei Lizho. He wanted to say that he was very reluctant, but after seeing Wei Lizho looking at him expectantly, he pursed his lips. What time tomorrow? Hearing Yu Yiqing's question, Wei Lizho smiled brighter, around 11 a.m. You can wait for me at the finish line then, and I'll show you a champion. New. Yu Yiqing looked down at the computer screen and coughed a few more times. Wei Lizho frowned slightly, you seem to be coughing a lot today. Could it be a cold? It just happens to change seasons recently. Yu Yiqing. Probably not, maybe the weather is too dry. Wei Lizho. It's really dry recently, you should drink more hot water. Chapter 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the middle of the night, when Wei Lizho fell into a drowsy sleep, he was woken up by the howling wind outside and the crackling rain. Wei Lizho stared in confusion, tried to open his eyelids, and complained, why are you so noisy? Wei Lizho propped himself up vigorously, sat up, and saw that the door of their dormitory leading to the balcony outside was not closed, and the rain had even wet the floor of the dormitory near the balcony door. Wei Lizho lifted the quilt and got out of bed. He turned on the flashlight in his mobile phone, pulled on his slippers, walked to the balcony and brought the balcony door up. Wei Lizho originally wanted to go back and continue lying on the bed, but out of the corner of his eye, he casually glanced at Yui Qing who was on the opposite bed, and suddenly felt a little puzzled. He remembered that Yui Qing used to be a light sleeper, and was easily woken up by small voices. Why was there so much noise just now that he didn't see any movement? Wei Lizho walked to Yui Qing's bed and said softly, "Hey, Yui Qing, did you wake up?" The one who answered Wei Lizho was silent in the room. Seeing this, Wei Lizho pursed his lips boredly, and was about to go back to sleep, when the flashlight in his mobile phone inadvertently shone across Yui Qing's face. Wei Lizho's leaving footsteps paused, and his eyes were suddenly attracted. He leaned close to Yui Qing, blinking his eyes to observe Yui Qing's beautiful eyelashes like crow's feathers. Why didn't I realize that his eyelashes are so beautiful before? Wei Lizho rubbed his chin. Wei Lizho didn't know why, the more he looked at it, the more itchy his heart became, and he couldn't help but want to reach out and gently touch the quietly drooping eyelashes. Wei Lizho pursed his lips, held his breath nervously, and swallowed unconsciously. He just touches it, so it won't wake Yui Qing up. If Yui wakes up, he can also touch his eyelashes for him, so that everyone will be evened and no one will suffer. The rain outside the house was getting heavier, and the sound of crackling raindrops continued to enter the house. Wei Lizho stretched out his hand slowly, he was so nervous that he could even hear the sound of his heart beating. Wei Lizho couldn't explain why he was so nervous at this moment. But for no reason, his ears started to feel hot. Wei Lizho's hand slowly approached Yui Qing's face, his fingertips even felt the hot breath exhaled by Yui Qing's nose, his heart beat faster all of a sudden. Etc. Hot. Wei Lizho's hand paused. He looked down at Yui Qing's face, and with the dim light of the flashlight, Yui Qing saw Yui Qing whose skin was cold and fair in the past, but now his cheeks were slightly flushed and his forehead was covered with a thin layer of wet sweat. Wei Lizho's heart skipped a beat, he frowned, covered Yui's forehead with his hand, and instantly found that his forehead was scalding a bit scary. Wei Lizho's expression changed, and he hurriedly turned and walked to his desk. He remembered that there was a mercury thermometer in his drawer. Wei Lizho quickly found the thermometer, and he took the thermometer back to Yui Qing's bed. He sat on the side of the bed and supported Yui Qing in his arms. He was about to put the thermometer into Yui Qing's arm when he saw Yui Qing's eyelashes fluttering slightly, and he opened his eyes with a frown. Wei Lizho hurriedly said, "It's just in time for you to wake up, quickly put the thermometer under your arm, let me see what your temperature is now." Yui Qing was a little dizzy and confused at this moment, he followed Wei Lizho's hand and took the thermometer without any hesitation. Seeing that Yui Qing had put the thermometer away, Wei Lizho told him in a low voice. "I'll turn on the lights in the dormitory first, and then turn on the air conditioner and heating. Don't take out the thermometer soon, wait until I tell you to take it, before you can take it." Yui Qing nodded obediently. After Wei Lizho turned on the air conditioner and heater, he immediately returned to Yui Qing's bed. The measurement time of the mercury thermometer takes more than 5 minutes. Sitting on Yui Qing's bed, Wei Lizho saw his eyes half closed, and couldn't help asking with some worry. "Are you okay? Are you feeling bad?" Yui Qing had regained consciousness slightly at this time, and his voice was hoarse. "It's okay." As soon as he finished speaking, he couldn't help coughing several times in an instant. Wei Lizho repeatedly tried to dissuade him. Forget it, you'd better not talk. See what your voice is like, can you call it okay? Do you consider yourself an Iron Man?" The illness seemed to lower Yui Qing's smile, and a faint smile suddenly appeared on the corner of his mouth. Seeing his appearance, Wei Lizho was dissatisfied and said, "Are you still laughing?" When I asked you if you had a cold, I should have found some packs of cold medicine for you to drink. It's already 3 o'clock in the morning, and where can I find medicine for you? Yuiching saw that the time had exceeded 5 minutes, so he took the thermometer out from under his arm. While looking at the thermometer, he said, "Don't bother, I'll go to the doctor to get the medicine tomorrow." This is not the first time he has encountered this situation, it has always been handled like this. Wei Lizho ignored his words and instead asked, "How many degrees does the thermometer show?" Yuiching. Go to sleep, don't you still have a 400-meter event to participate in today? Wei Lizho reached out his hand to Yuiching, "Give me the thermometer." Yuiching clenched the thermometer in his hand. Seeing Yuiching's refusal, Wei Lizho leaned over and took the thermometer from his hand. Seeing the result of 38.7 degrees Celsius displayed on the thermometer, Wei Lizho's face darkened instantly. "You have a fever, and you still let me go to bed. Don't wake me up tomorrow, you will be a fool with a fever." Yuiching couldn't help laughing, "It's only 38.7 degrees Celsius, it's not that exaggerated. What if it becomes more serious later?" Wei Lizho looked at Yuiching with a cold face. Yuiching was speechless, because he couldn't make a 100% guarantee. "I'll go to the school doctor's office and get you some fever-reducing medicine. Take the medicine first, and then see if the fever subsides. If you can't subside, you even have to go to the hospital for me. The school medical office is on duty 24 hours a day." Wei Lizho decided everything with a firm attitude. Seeing that Wei Lizho turned around and was about to leave, Yuiching hurriedly shouted, "Wait!" Wei Lizho turned around, pursed his lips and asked, "Why? You don't need to say anything to persuade me." Yui looked at Wei Lizho with clear eyes, "It's raining outside, take the raincoat in my drawer." Wei Lizho hummed, "It's not too bad." Seeing Wei Lizho put on his raincoat and walking outside, Yuiching clenched his fingertips and couldn't help saying hoarsely, "Be careful." Wei Lizho waved his hands without looking back, "You can lie on the bed at ease, don't worry, I will bring you medicine back soon." At 3 o'clock in the morning, the dormitory building was completely silent, only the noise of the wind and rain outside continued to enter the building. When Wei Lizho went down to the first floor, he knocked on the door of the dormitory supervisor on the first floor, asking the dorm supervisor to help him open the door of the dormitory building. But after he knocked for a while, he didn't hear the slightest movement in the room. Wei Lizho frowned a little irritably, it seemed that the supervisor was in a deep sleep. From the corner of Wei Lizho's eyes, he glanced at the courtyard wall on the other side of the first floor of the dormitory, and his piercing eyes lit up instantly. Wei Lizho walked to the courtyard wall, jumped up, and dexterously climbed onto the wall. After coming out of the dormitory, Wei Lizho hurried to the school doctor's office. The rain started to fall more and more heavily. Wei Lizho hurriedly walked, splashing muddy water continuously while walking, and the muddy water left large and small mud stains on his pants. Seeing the signboard of the school doctor's office appearing in his sight from a distance, Wei Lizho smiled a little on his rain-drenched face. He strode forward in a hurry, and arrived at the door of the school infirmary in a short while. After seeing the notice board hanging on the door of the school doctor's office, he closed his eyes and couldn't help but take a deep breath. "Temporarily leaving, please call 135x x 7937 for urgent matters." Wei Lizho took out his mobile phone and called the number on the notice board, but there was no answer on the other end of the phone. Wei Lizho couldn't help but let out a tisk anxiously. He tried hard to pull the door of the school infirmary, but the door still didn't move at all. Wei Lizho had to try to call the number on the notice board again, but no one answered. Wei Lizho glanced at the time on his phone, it was almost half an hour since he left the dormitory. Wei Lizho frowned, and didn't know when the doctor from the school infirmary would come back. Instead of waiting here, it's better to go to the pharmacy outside to buy medicine. Wei Lizho remembered that there was a 24-hour pharmacy near the school. The dormitory building was originally deep in the school, and the school doctor's room was even at the innermost side of the school. If going from here to the school gate, Wei Lizho estimated that it would take about half an hour. Wei Lizho glanced at the wall next to the school doctor's office. By climbing over this wall, not only can he save unnecessary detours, but he can also get to the pharmacy faster. Just as this thought flashed through Wei Lizho's mind, his body was already in front of the wall. Wei Lizho. The first time he was born, the second time he was an acquaintance, he will probably have with the wall tonight. After leaving school, Wei Lizho walked towards the pharmacy relying on his memory. In the dark night, the rain was pouring down, and the wind was getting stronger and stronger. Wei Lizho braved the strong wind, walked against the wind, and walked forward slowly and steadily. He pressed the raincoat cap hard with one hand, so that the raincoat cap was not blown away by the wind. In the dormitory, Yuiching looked at the door from time to time, but he didn't see Wei Lizho's figure appearing in front of him for a long time. He coughed several times with an itchy throat, and his face was flushed with fever at this time. Yuiching reached out and took the mobile phone not far from him, and sent Wei Lizho an inquiry message. He looked at the screen for a long time, but he didn't see Wei Lizho's reply. Yuiching frowned slightly, and he couldn't help but clenched his fingertips. In the pharmacy, Wei Lizho was standing in front of the cashier with a lot of medicines, his face full of helplessness. He didn't give up and tapped the phone screen again, but his phone screen failed because of the rain, and it was even completely black. Wei Lizho sighed inwardly, and looked up at the young male clerk sitting behind the cash register. Wei Lizho tried his best to squeeze out a bright smile, and asked the clerk. "Hello, my mobile phone is broken, can I pay on credit first? I will definitely pay it back tomorrow." The clerk was expressionless. "I'm just a part-time worker, and I have no right to decide this matter." Wei Lizho scratched his head in distress. The clerk raised his eyes and glanced at Wei Lizho. "Are you a student from Jiahai near here?" Wei Lizho nodded hastily, "Yes." "Don't worry, I will never renege on my debt. I can report my class name to you." Clerk. "Although our store stipulates that credit is not allowed, I can help you pay back the money." Wei Lizho's eyes lit up, and the next second he heard the clerk say, "That watch on your wrist is not bad. There is no such thing as a free lunch." Wei Lizho glanced at the mechanical watch on his right hand. Although this exquisitely designed watch is worth tens of thousands, it has no special meaning to him. Wei Lizho usually wears it, just because he is used to it. Wei Lizho immediately took the watch off his hand, and just as he was about to hand it to the clerk, someone patted the back of his head. Wei Lizho turned around in surprise, and saw a young girl in a black leather windbreaker standing behind him. The girl has soft pink curly hair and looks like she is in her early 20s. She took the watch in Wei Lizho's hand, looked at the watch, raised her head and said to Wei Lizho angrily. "What a prodigal." The girl with pink curly hair pushed Wei Lizho aside, stood in front of the cash register, and asked the clerk, "How much is the medicine he bought? I'll pay for it." The clerk's expression became a little ugly in an instant. "This is between me and him, so stop meddling in my own business." The girl sneered, "He is my junior. If you take advantage of him, you are taking advantage of me. Do you think I am the kind of person who is willing to suffer?" The clerk gritted his teeth angrily, but he also knew that he would not be lucky tonight. He bitterly said, "Got it, I will pay for you now." At the entrance of the pharmacy, the girl handed the plastic bag containing the medicine to Wei Lizho. Wei Lizho took the medicine and hurriedly thanked him. Wei Lizho looked at the girl. "How much is your WeChat account? I will transfer the money to you when I go back." The pink-haired girl waved her hand indifferently, "A little money, don't bother." Wei Lizho remembered that the girl said that she was his senior sister just now, so he asked, "What class are you in?" "Grade 3 and 7. The girl smiled and said, "But it's been 8 years since I graduated from high school." Wei Lizho. The girl Chow Wei Lizho joked. Little boy, you dare to climb over the wall in the middle of the night. You have a bit of my demeanor. I saw you entering the pharmacy in the middle of the night. I thought you were going to buy some medicine, but I didn't expect it to be fever medicine. The pink-haired girl saw Wei Lizho jumping over the wall just now, and on a whim, she wanted to see what he was planning to do. Wei Lizho was anxious to go back to the dormitory, and said to the girl. I still have something to do, so I will leave first. If I have a chance later, I will thank you for tonight. After Wei Lizho finished speaking, he raised his foot to rush towards the rain curtain. Wait! The pink-haired girl called out to stop Wei Lizho. Wei Lizho turned around. What's wrong? The pink-haired girl pointed to her car parked beside the road. Get in the car, I can take you there faster. Wei Lizho immediately walked to the car without hesitation, opened the door of the rear compartment, and sat in. Pink-haired girl. You're really welcome. The girl with pink hair quickly started the car. She looked at Wei Lizho in the rearview mirror. Is it under the main entrance of the school, or the one just now? Without hesitation, Wei Lizho said, that door just now. He had to argue a lot with the security guards to go to the main entrance now. The pink-haired girl carried Wei Lizho to the outside of the wall he just turned over. She turned her head and said to Wei Lizho, here we are, get out of the car. Wei Lizho said to the girl, I will trouble you tonight. The pink-haired girl waved her hands with a look of disgust. Stop moaning, if you talk a few more nonsense, your friend might be confused. When Wei Lizho heard this, he hurriedly put on his raincoat. Wei Lizho also wore a coat before going out. He stuffed the plastic bag containing the medicine into the coat, and then zipped it up to cover the medicine tightly, so as to prevent them from being hit by the rain just like the mobile phone. Wet bad. Wei Lizho. I'll go first. Go, go. Be careful not to jump over the wall, just fall on your face. Wei Lizho. After Wei Lizho got off the car, the pink-haired girl stepped on the accelerator instantly, and the car quickly disappeared into the night. After Wei Lizho climbed over the wall and entered the school, when he passed the school doctor's office, he looked back, and the notice board was still hanging there securely. Wei Lizho was instantly glad that he was not waiting here just now. Otherwise, I don't know when I can get the antipyretics for Yu Yiqing. Wei Lizho was like a sharp blade, cutting through the tight rain curtain, and walked forward quickly. When he stood in front of the dormitory door, the raincoat on his body was dripping continuously, and a puddle of water suddenly accumulated at his feet. Wei Lizho took off his raincoat and put it aside. He unzipped his jacket and took out the pharmacy bag. The plastic bag was not wet at all, and the medicine contained in it was even more well preserved. Wei Lizho suddenly took all the medicine out of the plastic bag. Then he threw the shopping bag with various information on the pharmacy into the trash can beside the corridor. Wei Lizho held a lot of medicine in his arms. He took out his key, and opened the door of the dormitory with difficulty. Sitting on the bed, Yu Yiqing's heart began to lift slightly when he heard the sound outside. When he saw that Wei Lizho really appeared in front of his eyes, he instantly breathed a long sigh of relief. Wei Lizho had a brilliant smile on his face. I'm back. How did you go so long? Wei Lizho put all the medicines on the table, and said in a complaining tone. The doctor in the school doctor's office is too slow. I asked him to find some medicines, but I had to wait for a long time. I can't wait to let him go. I personally it might be faster to come to find it. Wei Lizho was worried that the cold air brought from outside his body would aggravate Yu Yiqing's condition. So he quickly changed his soaked clothes with his hands and feet. Putting his clothes on, he said, you take the fever-reducing medicine first, and then put the fever-reducing patch on your forehead. I also took cough medicine and other medicines, and I kept them for your symptoms. Yu Yiqing got out of bed and walked to the table. He glanced at the various medicines on the table, and his eyes suddenly stopped on a box of fever medicine. Yu Yiqing picked up the medicine box, stared at the information on the medicine box. He was stunned for a moment. After Wei Lizho changed his clothes, he went to the drinking fountain to help Yu Yiqing get a cup of warm water, then walked back and handed the cup to Yu Yiqing. After Yu Yiqing took the water glass, he pursed his lips and looked up at Wei Lizho. Where did you say you got this box of medicine just now? When Wei Lizho was asked by him, his heart suddenly felt a little bit drummed, but he still pretended to be calm and said, "The school doctor's office." Yu Yiqing looked at Wei Lizho silently. Wei Lizho felt guilty when he saw him. What's wrong? If this box doesn't suit your taste, then try another antipyretic. Chapter 33. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yu Yiqing glanced down at the antipyretics in his hand, then raised his eyes to Wei Lizho, and said softly, "All the medicines brought in by the school doctor's office will be published on the school's official website." Wei Lizho. Hell, it's so transparent. And Yu Yiqing is too amazing, he actually memorized the names of the medicines on the official website. Wei Lizho rolled his eyes, and said, "Haha. Is there no such medicine on the school's official website? Maybe it's a new medicine they introduced, and it hasn't been announced on the official website yet." Yu Yiqing said firmly. "Impossible. Once this situation is discovered, the entire school medical office will suffer, and they don't need to take this risk. The school infirmary's management of drugs is very strict, and it can even be said to be strict." Yu Yiqing picked up 2 more boxes of fever-reducing stickers from the table, and looked at Wei Lizho. "The only thing you can get in the school doctor's office is the blue box of fever-reducing stickers, and the green box is not in their purchase list." Wei Lizho. Why don't you take medicine first? Shut Yu Yiqing's mouth with medicine first, he really can't stand it anymore. Yu Yiqing pursed his lips when he heard the words. He lowered his head and opened a box of antipyretics, and silently swallowed the pills with warm water. After taking the medicine, he raised his eyes and looked at Wei Lizho again, his voice tensed. "Have you gone to the 24-hour pharmacy outside?" Wei Lizho hastily picked up the water glass Yu Yiqing put on the table, and brought it to Yu Yiqing's lips. "Come on, drink more hot water." Yu Yiqing. Although Yu Yiqing was helpless, he still took the water glass from Wei Lizho's hand and took a sip of water. Seeing Yu Yiqing put the water glass back on the table, Wei Lizho was afraid that he would question him again, so he quickly tore off a fever-reducing sticker, and stuck it on Yu Yiqing's forehead with a snap. Wei Lizho. I have taken the medicine and put on the anti-fever stickers. You should lie on the bed and rest quickly. If you are sick, stop thinking about other things. After Wei Lizho finished speaking, he hurriedly brought Yu Yiqing to the bedside with a half push. Yu Yiqing felt helpless towards Wei Lizho's series of deceitful actions. He lay under the quilt on the bed, looked at Wei Lizho standing beside his bed, and said, "It's already late, you should hurry up and catch up on sleep. It's already 4 o'clock in the morning." Wei Lizho. Don't worry about me, I'm in good spirits now, I can't sleep at all. Wei Lizho intends to observe Yu Yiqing's fever reduction after taking the medicine. He is worried that Yu Yiqing's physical condition will deteriorate and his body temperature will not drop but rise while he is sleeping. Yu Yiqing frowned slightly, and was about to speak to persuade Wei Lizho, when Wei Lizho stretched out his hand and covered Yu Yiqing's eyes. "Quickly close your eyes and go to sleep, my ancestor." Yu Yiqing fluttered his eyelashes lightly, and the warmth from Wei Lizho's palm instantly spread to his brows and eyes, and this kind of warmth even began to continuously spread into his internal organs. His nostrils are filled with the clear and refreshing smell of Wei Lizho's body that is as warm as the sun. Yu Yiqing suddenly felt that his face became hotter, his body temperature rose several degrees in an instant, and his breath became hotter and hotter. He pursed his lips, with rare tension in his voice, and pretended to be calm. "Take your hands away from me, I'm going to sleep now." Wei Lizho was a little bit reluctant, because he finally touched the eyelashes that he wanted to touch but didn't. When Yuiching gently fluttered his fan. Feather-like thick eyelashes, Wei Lizho felt as if his heart was brushed by something lightly, a little itchy but very novel. Wei Lizho was somewhat obsessed with this feeling, but since Yuiching spoke up, he could only reluctantly move his hand away from Yuiching's eyebrows. Wei Lizho. Okay, then you sleep well, I'll play with my phone. After Wei Lizho finished speaking, he sat down at the desk. After Yuiching closed his eyes for a while, seeing that Wei Lizho hadn't made any sound for a long time, he couldn't help but opened his eyes slightly in doubt, and looked in the direction of the desk. As soon as he looked over, he happened to meet Wei Lizho's gaze. Wei Lizho. You don't sleep well, why are you watching me? Close your eyes quickly, if you want to watch me, I have a lot of time tomorrow for you to watch. Yuiching. Who wants to watch him all day? Narcissism. Yuiching closed his eyes instantly, and turned his back to Wei Lizho. Wei Lizho played with his mobile phone for a while, and when he heard Yuiching's breathing began to slow down, as if he had fallen into a state of sleep, thinking of Yuiching's guess that he went to the pharmacy to buy medicine just now, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion in a soft voice. Why is he so difficult to deceive? I heard it. Yui cleared his voice with sleepiness, he turned around again, opened his eyes in bewilderment, and looked at Wei Lizho. You haven't slept yet. Wei Lizho broke down a bit, so what he said just now was just a self-inflicted joke. Yuiching was sleepy, his eyes were half closed, and he said in a hoarse voice. I almost fell asleep. Wei Lizho. It seems that he really shot himself in the foot with a rock. Seeing Yuiching's sleepy appearance, Wei Lizho persuaded him gently. Then you go on sleeping, I will keep it safe so that I won't disturb you. Yuiching let out a low and the drowsiness brought on by the medicine soon rushed towards him like a tide. Before he closed his eyes, he said, good night, in a low voice. This, good night, was so soft that it disappeared into the air as soon as it came out of the throat. The corners of Wei Lizho's lips could not help but slightly twitch. Yuiching didn't know when he fell asleep, he only knew that when he woke up, there was no one in the dormitory. He got up and got out of bed, and saw a sticky note left by Wei Lizho on the desk. I went to the playground to participate in the 400-meter event, and I will be back soon. There are white porridge and side dishes in the insulated lunch box on the table, eat breakfast first when you wake up. Yuiching pushed open the door between the dormitory and the balcony. He walked to the balcony and vaguely heard the noise of the sports meeting from the playground in the distance. On the playground, because of the rare sports meeting, everyone was playing and laughing everywhere, and the whole sports meeting scene was full of lively atmosphere. Seeing Wei Lizho's figure appear on the playground, Yi Panbai and Ling Heek walked towards him. The two walked up to Wei Lizho and greeted him. Yi Panbai asked, how is Yuiching? Wei Lizho. The body temperature has dropped, but he didn't wake up before I went out just now. Yi Panbai nodded, that's good. After a while, it will be your 400-meter sprint event. I heard that Zhu Jinyang also participated in this event. Wei Lizho smiled indifferently, and teased. That is really destined. Zhu Jinyang was the champion of this event last year. Yi Panbai took a look at Wei Lizho, didn't you guard Yuiching last night? Are you sure you can do it? Don't hold on. If you really can't, just it doesn't matter if you quit the game. Ling Heek glanced at Wei Lizho's dark eyes, and echoed, your body is important. Wei Lizho smiled brightly. Now I am strong enough to kill 3 cows. Yi Panbai. Believe it or not, I will ask someone to bring you 3 cows right now. Let the whole school watch an Easter egg performance. Wei Lizho's chest broken bull. Wei Lizho laughed, don't worry, I know it well. If you feel unwell, I will tell you in time. Hearing that the men's 400-meter runners were being called on the radio to prepare on the track, Wei Lizho said to Yi Panbai and Ling Heek, "Wait. I'll come back with a trophy for you to see." After getting ready for the warm-up before the game, the contestants all stood on their respective tracks. Wei Lizho glanced at Zhu Jinyang, who was standing next to him on the track with disgust. Zhu Jinyang snorted coldly at him, his voice full of confidence, "If I win the championship later, don't feel uncomfortable." Wei Lizho smiled disdainfully, "It won't be too late to say this after you win the championship. Come on, Jinyang." Yu Weiyan's cheers came from standing beside the runway. "Brother, come on. Brother Zhu, you will definitely be able to defend your title successfully." Beside the runway, besides Yu Weiyun, Yan Kaichen was also there, and there were some other people who had good friends with them. Zhu Jinyang smiled flamboyantly at Wei Lizho, "See, you don't even have a single person who supports you." Although Wei Lizho was upset, he still pretended to be disgusted and said, "Who cares? Do you think this is a small sports meeting?" After Wei Lizho finished speaking, he blinked at Ling Heek and Yi Panbai, who were also standing on the side of the runway. Yi Panbai asked Ling Heek, who was beside him, "Why does Wei Lizho keep looking at us?" Ling Fa Xiao Hiku. "He wants us to learn from people like Yu Weiyun and cheer him on." Yi Panbai looked to Yu Weiyun's side, seeing how big their battle was, he was instantly dissatisfied. He said to Ling Heek, "If you lose, you don't lose, so let's shout." Ling Heek. Yi Panbai looked at Ling Heek's eyes and instantly guessed what was going on in his mind. He said to Ling Heek in disgust, "Ling Heek, do you find that your idol burden seems a bit heavy?" Ling Heek. Isn't it true that Yi Panbai and Wei Lizho have nothing to worry about? Out of the corner of Ling Heek's eyes, he glanced at Wei Lizho, who was still winking at them, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Ling Heek. Understood. Wei Lizho. Come on. Wei Lizho. You can do it. Ling Heek, learn from me and shout louder. On the track, Wei Lizho glanced lightly at Zhu Jinyang, "Did you see that you are not the only one who has a group of friends and relatives? Yi Panbai is the top 10. As soon as he goes out, your side instantly becomes the same as you. Like a chicken chirping." Zhu Jinyang saw it, it was true, Yu Weiyun and the others' voices were completely suppressed by Yi Panbai. He said angrily, "The competition depends on the strength to see the truth, it's too early for you to be proud." Wei Lizho rolled his eyes at him, and said with disdain, "I don't know who was the first to show off in front of me just now. I heard that you were the last champion, so you have to be careful as a front wave, and don't be taken lightly by me, a back wave. Just shoot it on the beach." Zhu Jinyang was anxious. A sudden broadcast interrupted him. "All contestants, please get ready. The men's 400-meter sprint is about to start. Please leave the track for non-athletes." Zhu Jinyang and Wei Lizho looked at each other, and both of them saw the refusal to admit defeat and strong provocation in each other's eyes. "On your marks. Get ready." Wei Lizho's brows and eyes were full of determination, and his eyes were sharply staring at the finish line in the distance. Bang! The moment the starting gun sounded, Wei Lizho pierced the air unstoppably like a sharp arrow shot from a strong bow with full strings. He runs extremely fast, and his figure is as vigorous as the wildest cheetah on the African grasslands, exuding the beauty of surging power. His brows and eyes are open, and his blazing eyes burst out that he is bound to win the championship. The corners of his clothes are slightly lifted by the wind, and the muscles around his waist are beautiful and firm, revealing a charming but not tense sense of strength. The screams and shouts from both sides of the runway shook the entire playground, almost shaking. When Wei Lizho was the first to sprint across the finish line, both Yi Panbai and other onlookers surrounded him excitedly. "Wei Lizho! You beat Zhu Jinyang, ha ha ha. 53.45 seconds. You broke the school record. Wei Lizho, you are running too fast. Wei Lizho gasped for breath and had no time to reply to them. When he calmed down, he raised his eyes and saw Yu Yiqing standing alone outside the crowd. Wei Lizho's eyes lit up instantly. He walked through the crowded crowd excitedly and walked up to Yu Yiqing. Did you see it? Yu Yiqing nodded slightly. Wei Lizho's brows and eyes are full of bright smiles, and his eyes are shining brightly. I told you in the classroom yesterday that I will give you a championship today. I didn't make a mistake, I did it. Hearing this, Yu Yiqing was stunned for a moment, as if his heartstrings, which had been dusty for a long time, were gently plucked again. The smile on Wei Lizho's face was as dazzling as the sun at this time, and he proudly said to Yu Yiqing, "Do you think I'm cool?" "I'm cool." Yu Yiqing's cold eyes were gradually stained with a gentle smile, and he said softly, "Very powerful." Although he came late, he still arrived on the sidelines 1 second before the start of the game. So I didn't miss Wei Lizho's whole performance. Wei Lizho didn't expect his bragging to be echoed by Yu Yiqing. He looked at Yu Yiqing with a face like he saw a ghost. "Are you out of your mind? You still praise me like that?" Yu Yiqing instantly raised her eyes and glared at him angrily. He must have lost his mind just now to agree with Wei Lizho, an idiot. Yu Yi turned cold, turned around and walked away. Wei Lizho smiled and hurriedly caught up with him. "At the same table, wait for me." "Why are you walking so fast?" Yi Panbai and Ling Heek watched silently as they left. Yi Panbai. Where do you think the two of them are going? Ling Heek glanced at him, then silently withdrew his gaze. Under the daily influence of Ling Heek, Yi Panbai has developed an excellent eye-reading ability. Yi Panbai. So you could even read Wei Lizho's eyes just now, but now you don't even know such trivial things as where he is going. Why do you have the face to say that you are his boy? Ling Heek glanced at him, and said lightly, "Do you want this blessing for you?" Yi Panbai flinched instantly. "The mango milk in the school cafeteria is about to start supplying, I have to go buy it, let's go first, goodbye." Ling Heek. In fact, Wei Lizho didn't know where he was going. Wei Lizho looked at Yu Yiqing beside him. "At the same table, where are we going?" Yu Yiqing. "Dormitory." Wei Lizho nodded understandingly. "I have to go back to the dormitory." "Your voice is still a little hoarse, but it seems that you are not in good health yet. Don't get serious just because you came out to blow air." Yu Yiqing. "Have you looked in the mirror today?" Wei Lizho shook his head. "It seems not." "But why do you ask this question? Is there something dirty on my face?" A trace of helplessness flashed in Yu Yiqing's eyes. "Stop talking nonsense, go back to the dormitory and make up for your sleep." "I don't know, I thought he was a giant panda on the run from the zoo." Wei Lizho smiled instantly. "So you are caring about me at the same table." Yu Yiqing pursed her lips. "It's just to repay you for what happened last night, don't think too much about it." Wei Lizho smiled jokingly. It seemed that his deskmate started to say something different again. Seeing the smile on his face, Yu Yiqing couldn't help but feel more ashamed and annoyed, and walked faster and faster. Wei Lizho walked behind him and shouted at him. "At the same table, your speed is almost as fast as when I ran 400 meters just now." "Shut up." Yu Yiqing finally couldn't suppress the shame and anger in his body. Wei Lizho laughed out loud. Competitive competition is a brutal game, and almost most people focus on the first place. Therefore, when everyone surrounded Wei Lizho, Zhu Jinyang also suffered from the coldness of others. Although he had won the second place, the only people around him who congratulated him were the small group of people who supported him just now. Yu Weiyun saw that Zhu Jinyang's face was livid, so he comforted him. "You have performed very well, don't criticize yourself." Zhu Jinyang looked annoyed. "Next time I have a chance, I will never underestimate the enemy like today." Yu Weiyun nodded and echoed. I believe you can do it. And this is just a small competition. It's nothing special for Wei Lizho to win. It's nothing special, it's just that Wei Lizho won the championship and Zhu Jinyang won the runner-up. When Lu Yiru walked past Zhu Jinyang and the others with the members of the disciplinary association, she lightly said such a sentence. Zhu Jinyang looked at the back of Lu Yiru leaving indifferently with a face of astonishment. He smiled back in anger, and said to the people beside him. Lu Yiru, why is this crazy? When did I offend her? Yu Weiyun was at a loss, because he didn't know why Lu Yiru suddenly targeted Zhu Jinyang. Yan Kaichen suddenly said at this time. Maybe it's because Lu Jiahao and Lu Lirong are going to return from visiting relatives abroad this afternoon. Zhu Jinyang understood Yan Kaichen's explanation instantly. He curled his lips in dissatisfaction, and complained. Lu Yiru is in a bad mood, it's none of my business, why are you me off? Just because I got close to Lu Jiahao. Why is she so small? Lu Jiahao and Lu Lirong are brothers and sisters, and Lu Yiru is their cousin. Although Lu Yiru's father is the current person in charge of the Lu family, her grandfather still has a lot of say in the company. Lu Yiru's grandfather was very partial to Lu Jiahao on weekdays, even when he went to the company to hold shareholder meetings, he would always bring Lu Jiahao with him. Lu Yiru's relationship with her grandfather was very stiff since she was a child, and her relationship with Lu Jiahao's brother and sister was also very distant and cold. Almost everyone in the school knew that Lu Ruanfan, Lu Jiahao, and their brother and sister had a bad relationship. Yu Weiyun couldn't help frowning when he thought of Lu Jiahao and Lu Lirong. Especially the unruly and domineering Lu Lirong made him even more uncomfortable. But because Zhu Jinyang, Yan Kaichen and Lu Jiahao have known each other since they were young, even if Yu Weiyun was unhappy, he had no choice but to pretend nothing had happened. Zhu Jinyang looked at Yan Kaichen, how do you know about Lu Jiahao and Lu Lirong's return to China this afternoon? It must be Lu Lirong who told you again, right? Yan Kaichen smiled, she asked me to pick up the plane in the afternoon. Zhu Jinyang couldn't help asking gossip. Tell me quietly, how do you feel about Lu Lirong? Didn't she like you very much since she was a child? Yan Kaichen had a gentle smile on his face. I just regard her as my younger sister. The next day, many students surrounded the bulletin board in the corridor of the teaching building. Who are you going to choose, have you figured it out? Of course it's Yan Kaichen. He served as an outstanding student representative for 2 semesters in a row in the first year of high school last year. But Yu Yiqing seems to be pretty good too. Haven't you noticed that he is firmly in the first place in all the exams this semester? And since Ling Heek was transferred, Yan Kaichen's original Wanyan's second position is occasionally unstable. The school in Jiahai selects an outstanding student representative from each grade every semester. School teachers and leaders will refer to the performance of all students in this grade, and then nominate 2 candidates, and let the students vote for the outstanding student representatives of their grade among these 2 candidates. The selected outstanding student representatives will deliver a speech on behalf of their grade at the school-wide end-of-term summary ceremony shortly thereafter. The candidates for this semester of the second year of high school are Yu Yiqing and Yan Kaichen. At the end of each semester, the election of outstanding student representatives will become a hot topic in the school. At this time, the crowd of onlookers in front of the bulletin board had already started a heated discussion around the candidates. I think Yan Kaichen has a better chance of winning. After all, he is very talented in all aspects, and many people will want to sell him for the sake of his family background. I also think Yan Kaichen is more likely to be elected. But Yu Yiqing's performance this semester is not bad. He also represented the school and won several trophies in subject competitions before. Yu Yiqing, what kind of is he, why should he be compared with Yan Kaichen? An arrogant female voice suddenly came out from behind the crowd. Chapter 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hearing this voice, everyone turned their heads and saw Yan Kaichen and Lu Lirong standing outside the crowd. Yan Kaichen hooked his lips politely towards everyone. Lu Lirong has a pretty face, but the expression on her face is obviously showing a bit of arrogance. It's Lu Lirong. I haven't seen her for a long time. When did she return to China? I heard that he came back 2 days ago. Lu Lirong is really with Yan Kaichen every day. Will these two people really want to be a couple in the future? Amidst the whispers of the people around, Lu Lirong walked to the bulletin board, glanced at the information of the two candidates on it, and sneered disdainfully. A student who is a social supporter actually has the nerve to compete with Yan Kaichen for an outstanding student representative. I think the teachers in the school really have to go to the ophthalmology department. Their eyesight is so bad, what qualifications do they have to teach us? Hearing this, Yan Kaichen walked up to her, and said in a warm voice, Lu Lirong, speak well, don't blame the teachers. Lu Lirong curled her lips, but still said obediently. Understood, I just don't talk about it in the future. Lu Lirong glanced around at the students around, and said to them. Everyone, please remember to vote for Yan Kaichen, don't vote for the wrong person. Lu Lirong said proudly. Yan Kaichen comes from a noble family, and he may be able to inherit the Yan family in the future. Yaoi Qing is not qualified to be compared with him at all. Yan Kaichen heard the words, and sternly shouted. Enough, Lu Lirong, don't talk more and more outrageous. What about inheriting the Yan family? These are all things that have no shadow. When Lu Lirong was scolded by him, her face was instantly filled with grievances. She didn't understand why Yan Kaichen suddenly changed his face. Obviously when he heard her say that before, he didn't react so violently. I said why, as soon as I came here, I felt that the air quality here was extremely dirty. It turned out that someone had a bad mouth. Wei Lizhou's mocking voice suddenly sounded outside the crowd. Everyone looked behind. Wei Lizhou, Yaoi Qing and Yi Panbai were standing not far from them. What Lu Lirong and Yan Kaichen said just now were clearly heard by the three of them. Seeing their figures, Yan Kaichen showed them a warm smile, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Yan Kaichen looked at Wei Lizhou and Yaoi Qing, and said in a gentle voice. Lu Lirong has always been a little irritable, but she really doesn't have any malicious intentions, please be more patient. Hearing that Yan Kaichen was protecting her, Lu Lirong instantly showed a joyful and sweet smile on her face. Wei Lizhou rolled his eyes speechlessly, turned his head and asked Yi Panbai beside him. Yi Panbai, did you hear the dog barking? How dare you scold us? Lu Lirong glared at Wei Lizhou angrily. When did I scold you? I've always been outspoken, and I like to be outspoken when I have a problem. Can't you take care of me a little more? Wei Lizhou spread his hands innocently. When Yaoi Qing saw this, a smile flashed in his eyes. Yi Panbai also smiled and echoed. That's right, since we have to take care of each other, let's take care of each other together, so that you won't be scolded for double standards later. Wei Lizhou is doing a good deed to help you avoid being bullied. Scolding. You should thank him well. Wei Lizhou nodded again and again, yes. I was almost moved to tears by my kindness. Lu Lirong was exasperated, you are sophistry. You people are simply too unqualified. Wei Lizhou didn't feel bad when he was scolded. Instead, he said. Even if we are really lacking in quality, we are better than some creatures who don't speak human language. You're calling us inhuman. Lu Lirong gritted her teeth angrily, glaring at Wei Lizhou viciously. She has always been praised by others, but when she met Wei Lizhou today, she was almost off. Wei Lizhou smiled and said. You are not human, what could it be? Could it be something? We are nothing. Lu Lirong blurted out a retort, and after she finished speaking, she realized that she had actually scolded herself. Yi Panbai let out a chuckle, and the faces of the people around him couldn't hold back their smiles either. Seeing this, Yan Kaichen's eyes flashed a little bored. He took Lu Lirong's hand, forget it, don't make trouble among classmates because of these trivial matters. Yan Kaichen didn't think that with Lu Lirong's words, he could get past Wei Lizho and continue to pester him. It's just going to embarrass them even more. After all, Yan Kaichen has a special status in Lu Lirong's heart. Hearing Yan Kaichen's persuasion, Lu Lirong was worried that her image in Yan Kaichen's eyes would be affected by this incident, so she followed Yan Kaichen's words and said, I know, I won't quarrel with them. After Yan Kaichen persuaded Lu Lirong, he smiled at the people around him and said, everyone should leave, it's just a small friction, there's nothing exciting to watch. When the people around heard what Yan Kaichen said, they also left with great insight. Soon there were only Wei Lizho and Yan Kaichen left in front of the bulletin board. Lu Lirong still felt depressed in her heart. Before she followed Yan Kaichen to leave, she couldn't help but turned her head and said harshly to Wei Lizho and the others. The outstanding student representatives of the second grade must be in Yan Kaichen's pocket. I advise you to do better. Stop delusional and daydreaming. Yan Kaichen frowned. Lu Lirong, stop talking, everyone has equal opportunities. Hearing what Yan Kaichen said, Lu Lirong had no choice but to suppress her anger and follow Yan Kaichen to leave. Looking at their leaving backs, Wei Lizho curled his lips, leaned into Yu Yiqing's ear, and said in a low voice, do you think Yan Kaichen is putting on a show? Wei Lizho's breath hit Yu Yiqing's fair ears lightly while speaking. Wei Lizho's unexpected approach caused the temperature of Yu Yiqing's ears to soar instantly, and it was so hot that it started to turn red in an instant. He quickly pushed Wei Lizho away, pursed his lips and said in a low voice. He has already left, you can just say it. Wei Lizho. I'm afraid that they haven't gone far, and they will hear me. Yu Yiqing's ears hidden under the broken hair were already blushing. He slightly turned his head away, clenched his fingertips, and said coldly, anyway, don't get so close to me next time. Wei Lizho didn't notice Yu Yiqing's unnatural behavior. He nodded and said, okay. However, whether he will remember it next time is another matter. Yi Panbai, who was standing beside him, was puzzled when he heard their conversation. He asked Wei Lizho curiously. What did you whisper to Yu Yiqing just now? You kept it from me. Don't say good things a second time. Wei Lizho deliberately teased Yi Panbai jokingly, wanting to see how he jumped in a hurry. After Yi Panbai has been fooled so many times, he now understands Wei Lizho's tricks very well. He rolled his eyes at Wei Lizho in disgust, if you love to talk, don't talk about falling down. Wei Lizho clasped his hands on the back of his head, and said carelessly. Then I won't say anything. Yi Panbai. How can there be such a person in this world who makes people gnash their teeth with hatred? Wei Lizho glanced at Yi Panbai, are you scolding me again in your heart? Yi Panbopi twitched the corners of his mouth with a half smile, guess. The quarrel in front of the bulletin board soon spread throughout the school. This incident naturally reached Yu Weiyun's ears. During the class break, Yu Weiyun suddenly came to the desk of Yu Yiqing and Wei Lizho. When Wei Lizho saw Yu Weiyun, he helplessly helped his forehead. Why is he here again? Can't he stop strolling in front of them? Seeing Wei Lizho's bright and disgusted expression, Yu Weiyun was instantly dissatisfied, but he remembered the purpose of his trip, and quickly suppressed his emotions. Yu Weiyun looked at Yu Yiqing, I heard that you, Yan Kaichen and Lu Lirong had a quarrel because of the outstanding student representatives. Yu Yiqing raised his eyes and glanced at him, I already know everything, but I still want to ask. Don't you think it's a waste of time? Yu Weiyun became angry for a moment, he took a deep breath in his heart, and said nonchalantly. You are my own brother, if you conflict with them, I must be on your side. Wei Lizho on the side was surprised when he heard the words, it's incredible, did the sun rise from the west today? Hearing Wei Lizho's funny words, a smile flashed across Yu Yiqing's eyes. Yu Weiyun made up his mind to ignore Wei Lizho, not wanting to be surrounded by Wei Lizho. He clenched his fingertips, and continued to say to Yuiching. I guess you should also know that Yan Kaichen was an outstanding student representative in the first year of high school last year. But you probably haven't heard how much the vote difference between him and his competitors is. Seeing that Wei Lizho and Yuiching were both looking at him, Yu Weiyun suppressed the gloating in his heart and pretended to be surprised. There is a gap of more than 200 votes between them, and there are only 400 students in our grade. Yu Weiyun waved with a sincere look on his face. He persuaded Yuiching. I just want to persuade you to withdraw from this election for your own good. Otherwise, if the gap in the number of votes is as big as last year, it will be even more embarrassing and thrown on the table. If you exit now, you can stop the loss in time. Yu Weiyun quickly glanced at Yuiching. He just didn't want to see Yuiching show off. Even if Yuiching's chance of winning was slim, he still didn't want Yuiching to seize this opportunity. After all, the more catching Yuiching was, the more he seemed useless. Although Yuiching didn't care about this outstanding student representative in his heart, he didn't want to go along with Yu Weiyun's proposal either. Yuiching's brows and eyes were cold, and he said to Yu Weiyun. This is my own business. I don't need you to worry about whatever choice I want to make. Seeing that Yuiching was not moved at all, Yu Weiyun couldn't help but feel a little anxious, and he continued to say to Yuiching. It's not that I don't like you, but Lu Lirong is taking her sister group to post on the school forum calling for everyone to vote for Yan Kaichen. I heard that they plan to go to various classes to give lectures in the future. Yu Yi raised his eyes lightly. So. Yu Weiyun was about to vomit blood because of Yuiching's lack of energy. He tried his best to calm down the grievance in his chest, and said calmly and considerately. So, we should be heroes who know the current affairs. Otherwise, it will be even more embarrassing if we don't even have to go down the steps. If you quit now, maybe you can be praised for your grace and gain a good reputation. Wei Lizho vaguely noticed that something was wrong with Yu Weiyun, and he said bluntly. Yu Weiyun, why do I feel that you are a bit like the emperor not in a hurry and the eunuchs in a hurry? I don't know, I thought you were going to run for an outstanding student representative. Is it you, not Yuiching? Yu Weiyun's words were so heart-wrenching that Yu Weiyun couldn't hold back, and his face froze on the spot. Yu Weiyun dreams of becoming an outstanding student representative. After all, this is so beautiful, but he doesn't even have the qualifications to be a candidate, let alone how to become one. Yu Weiyun threw a sentence at Yuiching angrily. Anyway, I've finished my good words. It's up to you whether you listen or not, just don't regret it when the time comes. After Yu Weiyun finished speaking, he left Wei Lizho's table directly, not wanting to stay for even half a second. After Yu Weiyun left, Wei Lizho thought of Lu Lirong's canvassing measures he just mentioned, and he couldn't help asking Yi Panbai curiously. Your school is running for an outstanding student representative, and the battle is so messed up. Is it that big? Yi Panbai. What do you mean by, your school? You have been studying for almost a semester, and you are also a member of our school. Wei Lizho. Focus on the key points. Do you understand? You have the wrong focus. Although Yi Panbai was speechless to Wei Lizho, he still explained. Last year it wasn't so exaggerated. Their movement this time is much bigger than last year. Moreover, the number of outstanding student representatives represents the excellence of the students after all, so it's normal to have fierce competition. If you talk about excellence, then Yuiching deserves it. Wei Lizho said with a face of course. Yi Panbai. Lu Lirong thinks of Yan Kaichen that way too. Wei Lizho curled his lips at Yi Panbai. What do you know, she is a beauty in the eye of the beholder, and she wears a filter. I am different, I am impartial and selfless, and I do not avoid relatives when I honor my virtuous. Lu Lirong liked Yan Kaichen since she was a child, and Wei Lizho had already heard about it from Yi Panbai, a little gossip expert. When Yi Panbai heard what Wei Lizho said, he was speechless for a moment. Why does he feel that Wei Lizho's filter index is not too low? Although he is not happy. But Yan Kaichen can still be called excellent in some aspects. Wei Lizho was worried for Yu Yiqing when he thought of Yan Kaichen's battle. He stretched out his index finger and poked Yu Yiqing's arm. At the same table, what are you going to do? Before Yu Yiqing opened his mouth to answer, Yi Panbai said first. Your question is a waste of time to ask. Do you think Yu Yiqing seems to be someone who will make trouble? Wei Lizho nodded in agreement when he heard the words, that's right. His desk mate is an honest boy. If he really wants to make trouble, he, Wei Lizho, is more professional. Yu Yiqing discovered a strange phenomenon in the past 2 days. Wei Lizho, Yi Panbai, and even Ling Heek were a little mysterious and disappeared after class. Soon it was time for recess. As soon as the get-out-of-class bell rang, Wei Lizho greeted Yi Panbai and Ling Heek to go out quickly. Seeing the figures of the three of them quickly disappear at the door of the classroom, Yu Yiqing frowned slightly. After hesitating for a moment, Yu Yiqing stood up and walked towards the door of the classroom. Wei Lizho and the others walked too fast, and when Yu Yiqing walked out of the classroom door, Yu Yiqing could no longer see the figures of these three people. Yu Yiqing pursed his lips, thinking that the break between classes was not long. He guessed that Wei Lizho and the others would not run too far. Yu Yiqing decided to walk around to see if he could meet the three of them by chance. Chapter 35. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Yu Yiqing searched around for a while, seeing that Wei Lizho and the others still couldn't be seen, considering that class was about to start, Yu Yiqing planned to go back to the classroom. On his way back to the classroom, he suddenly heard a lively noise coming from the corner of the corridor. Yu Yiqing walked in the direction of the voice. He walked around the corner of the corridor, and when he saw the picture in front of his eyes, he stopped abruptly. My friend, what club do you belong to? Art club, what's wrong? Then you usually need models. If you need it, please contact us. As long as you vote for Yu Yiqing from class 28 of senior high school, we will be half-brothers of all the members of the art department. Wei Lizho said with a look on his face, enthusiastically introduced to the boy in front of him. When Wei Lizho said this, the boy's face was a little moved. He took the flyer from Wei Lizho and said, I will think about it carefully. Besides Wei Lizho, Yi Panbai was also distributing leaflets to passers-by, and even the cold-tempered Ling Heek was doing the same thing. Wei Lizho and Ling Heek are famous in the school, many people know them, but they have no chance to get in touch. After all, their small circle doesn't seem easy to enter. It was a rare opportunity to get to know each other, and many people were more than happy to take their leaflets and have a word with them. Yu Yiqing looked at the scene not far in front of him. He didn't need to guess to know that Wei Lizho must have started this matter. Yu Yiqing stared at Wei Lizho, who was laughing and promoting not far away. Wei Lizho's bright smile was reflected in Yu Yiqing's cold amber eyes, and his frosty brows and eyes softened a bit. Yu Yiqing originally thought that Wei Lizho only asked Yi Panbai and Ling Heek to help, but when he saw Yi Panbai's cousin Yi Ronghua and several members of the Sonda Club, he realized that Wei Lizho actually also played Sonda. The club was also called to help out. Yu Yiqing stared at them for a long time, his eyes swept away inadvertently, and when he saw Zhu Jinyang approaching menacingly from the distance across the corridor, he frowned. Before Zhu Jinyang arrived, he raised his voice and reprimanded. Yi Ronghua, what do you mean? Yi Ronghua, Zhu Jinyang, and Yan Kaichen have known each other since childhood. Therefore, the news that Yi Ronghua came to help Yu Yiqing publicize immediately reached Zhu Jinyang's ears. Seeing Zhu Jinyang looking for faults, Wei Lizho and others also stopped what they were doing and stood beside Yi Ronghua. Zhu Jinyang walked up to Yi Ronghua, looked at Yi Ronghua, and asked with dissatisfaction on his face, aren't you tearing down Yan Kaichen's platform by doing this now? The friendship we have known since we were young, you just turn your elbows away like this. When Yi Ronghua heard this, a bit of speechlessness appeared on his face. Isn't it the same school from childhood to adulthood? This school has a lot of people in similar situations like this. Wei Lizho laughed out loud. Then according to this logic, as long as I breathe the same air and drink the same water source, I can say that all the people in the whole country are my relatives and friends. Wei Lizho sighed, pretending to be sad. Wouldn't it be too busy for me to visit relatives during the Chinese New Year? Yi Panbai was also unhappy with Zhu Jinyang's arrogant attitude towards his cousin Yi Ronghua. He laughed and echoed Wei Lizho and said, "Wei Lizho, you should be snickering. How many red envelopes do you have to charge? It's like getting rich overnight." Zhu Jinyang was so angry at what they said. But he was stupid and couldn't think of a rebuttal, so he simply said angrily at Yi Ronghua, "If you continue to refuse to listen to persuasion, don't blame me and Yan Kaichen for not treating you well in the future." Yi Ronghua said indifferently, "Goodbye, I'll leave." Yi Ronghua also stretched her hands upwards, making a playful gesture of seeing off the guests. Zhu Jinyang glared at him angrily, turned around and left with a full stomach full of anger. Yu Yiqing saw that Wei Lizho and the others had suffered nothing, so he planned to turn around and leave quietly. As soon as he turned around, he saw Yan Kaichen and Lu Lirong standing not far behind him. Yan Kaichen and Lu Lirong also witnessed the whole process of Zhu Jinyang's failure to find fault just now. Yu Yiqing didn't intend to talk to the two of them, but Lu Lirong couldn't swallow it. When Yu Yiqing passed by Lu Lirong snorted coldly, and said, "It's because of someone, Yi Ronghua and Zhu Jinyang, that they quarreled. Someone must be very proud of this right now." Yu Yiqing ignored her and walked straight over. Seeing Yu Yiqing ignoring her, Lu Lirong was even more aggrieved. She turned her head, looked at Yu Yiqing's back and shouted. "Some people are really scheming, they hide everything behind others, and just watch others charge for them. He can get a good reputation for not seeking fame and fortune." Yu Yiqing stopped, turned to look at Lu Lirong, "Are you talking about Yan Kaichen?" Lu Lirong was furious, "Why are you pretending to be stupid? I'm talking about you." Yu Yi glanced at Yan Kaichen, a hint of sarcasm flashed in his eyes, he turned and left directly. Seeing Yu Yiqing's appearance, Lu Lirong jumped even more angrily, and complained to Yan Kaichen. "Look at his attitude, he is so unqualified. Sure enough, the children raised by poor ghosts have no quality." Yan Kaichen stared at Yu Yiqing's back, and then said to Lu Lirong, "Forget it, don't get angry with yourself because of these trivial things. It doesn't matter if I don't get the outstanding student representative, anyway, I got it twice last year." Lu Lirong said firmly. "No. I must help you get this spot, I don't believe you will lose to him." The closer the voting results are announced, the more topics about outstanding student representatives will skyrocket. Many posts on the school forum are almost upsetting. And one of the most interesting is the results of the second grade of high school. Finally, on Monday, the principal will announce the final voting results for the 3 grades at the flag-raising ceremony. When he heard the name Yu Yiqing from the principal's mouth, Wei Lizho excitedly patted Yu Yiqing's shoulder in front of him. "Good job, Yu Yiqing." Thinking of the things that Wei Lizho and the others did without telling him, Yu Yiqing had a smile in his eyes, which he didn't even realize. Wei Lizho seemed more excited than Yu Yiqing, who was elected. His handsome eyebrows and eyes were full of joy, and he asked Yu Yiqing, "Are you surprised now?" "Very surprised." Wei Lizho thought that Yu Yiqing didn't know what they were doing. He thought that Yu Yiqing almost only had contact with a few of them on weekdays, and he didn't go to school forums. So Yu Yiqing should be very surprised that he was selected. Yu Yiqing looked at Wei Lizho's bright eyes full of expectation, he pursed his lips, and nodded his head lightly, "It's a little unexpected." Hearing Wei Lizho's words, the smile on his face instantly became brighter. After the flag-raising ceremony, Yu Yiqing walked in the middle surrounded by Wei Lizho and Yi Panbai. Ling Heek also had a rare faint smile on his lips, watching Wei Lizho and Yi Panbai chirping excitedly. Yi Panbai looked proud. Yu Yiqing has more than 50 votes more than Yan Kaichen. This is simply a crushing victory. Wei Lizho chuckled, didn't everyone say that Yu Yiqing could not win before? Now that the facts are in front of our eyes, let me see who still has the cheeks. Cut. It's just a villain's success. Some people are really ignorant, and they start to drift away after getting an honor. Lu Lirong's harsh and sharp mocking voice sounded behind Wei Lizho and the others. Wei Lizho looked back. Lu Lirong and Yan Kaichen were standing not far behind them. Yan Kaichen smiled warmly at Yu Yiqing, and said, "Congratulations, Yu Yiqing. If you are not sure how to write the speech at the end of term summary ceremony, you can come and borrow it from me. After all, this is a speech representing our sophomore year. Anything goes wrong." Yu Yiqing looked at Yan Kaichen's hypocritical face, a bit of boredom flashed in his eyes. When he was about to say that he didn't need it, he heard Wei Lizho say. "The speech script, right. Yan Kaichen, you don't have to worry about such trivial matters. I have already borrowed it from senior sister Lu Yiru for her sophomore year. Yan Kaichen, yours is just a speech from the first year of high school, and we are now the second year of high school. Lu Yiru has served as an outstanding student representative every semester, and this semester is still the same." When Yan Kaichen heard Wei Lizho's words, a bit of coldness flashed in his eyes, but he still smiled and said. "It turns out that you have already borrowed it from senior sister Lu Yiru, so it was unnecessary for me." When Lu Lirong saw Wei Lizho slapping Yan Kaichen's face like this, and seeing Yan Kaichen being wronged, she immediately said angrily. "What are you so arrogant about? Even if Yan Kaichen didn't become an outstanding student representative, he is still outstanding." Wei Lizho nodded, yes, but our Yu Yiqing is an outstanding student representative. Lu Lirong gritted her teeth angrily. Yan Kaichen not only has excellent grades, but also has excellent ability to play the violin. Wei Lizho nodded again, yes, but our Yu Yiqing is an outstanding student representative. Lu Lirong was so angry that she was about to explode. She shouted angrily, "Are you a repeater?" Wei Lizho stretched out his index finger and shook it. No, I'm actually a walking humanoid lighter. Wei Lizho, also known as human-shaped lighter. Specialty, ignites anger and adds fire to fire. Lu Lirong was so angry that she couldn't speak for a while. Yu Yiqing touched Wei Lizho's arm and said, "Let's go back to the classroom." Wei Lizho didn't want to continue to entangle with Lu Lirong, so he obediently followed Yu Yiqing's footsteps. After the outstanding student representatives of each grade were selected, the painful review week and final exam soon came. On the second day after the final exam, the school held a school-wide final summary ceremony in the school auditorium. Yu Yiqing has rich experience in speaking on stage. Therefore, facing such an occasion, his speech performance on stage is still calm and steady. Yi Panbai glanced at Wei Lizho who was sitting next to him, and said helplessly, "Are you enough?" Wei Lizho took a picture of Yu Yiqing on the stage with his mobile phone. "Is this enough? This is Yu Yiqing's important speech and highlight moment. I will help him record it and send it to him later. In this way, he will think about it in the future. If you want to recall, you can take it out and read it anytime." Yi Panbai. Even if he was given 10 more brains, he still couldn't imagine how Yu Yiqing would look back at the photos in the future. After Yu Yiqing finished his speech, he returned to the seat next to Wei Lizho. Wei Lizho immediately sent the photos and videos he captured just now to Yu Yiqing. Yu Yiqing. Wei Lizho must have taken too many photos. After the summary ceremony, when Wei Lizho and Yu Yiqing walked out of the auditorium, Wei Lizho was still talking to Yu Yiqing about the photos he had just taken with great interest. Wei Lizho had just finished speaking with Yu Yiqing. When he looked up, he saw Yan Kaichen and Lu Lirong standing not far away. He couldn't help complaining in his heart, "It's really a narrow road for enemies." Seeing Wei Lizho and the others, Lu Lirong was about to taunt, when Yan Kaichen pulled her arm. Seeing Yen Kaiken's disapproving eyes, Lu Lirong had no choice but to swallow what she wanted to say back into her throat. Wei Lizho has the kind of character that people don't offend me and I don't offend others. Seeing Lu Lirong and the others kept their own order, he didn't plan to talk to them. Instead, he turned his head and continued talking to Yu Yiqing, Yi Panbai and the others. Yen Kaichen looked at their leaving back with deep eyes. Lu Lirong was a little confused, so she followed Yen Kaichen and looked at the back of Wei Lizho and the others as they left. Yen Kaichen, Lu Lirong, why are you two children in a daze here? A gentle female voice suddenly sounded behind Yen Kaichen and the others. When Yen Kaichen heard this familiar voice, his eyes flashed with surprise. He turned around and looked at the person coming, with some surprise in his voice. Auntie, didn't you go abroad for exchange and study? The person who came was Yen Kaiken's eldest aunt, Huang Xiuan. Lu Lirong also showed a cute smile to Huang Xiuan, Aunt Huang, long time no see. Huang Xiuan smiled and nodded to her, and then explained to Yen Kaichen. The exchange study abroad in my country ended early, so I came back. Huang Xiuan is the chief physician of the Department of Orthopedics at a well-known hospital in Haicheng. Yen Kaiken's tone was gentle, and he asked with concern. Then why didn't you rest at home for a few days, and came to school instead? Huang Xiuan showed a helpless smile, and said. You also know that your uncle has gone on a business trip abroad, and you don't know when he will come back. The house is deserted, and I don't really want to stay at home, so I plan to come out to see your mother have a meal. I heard her on the phone saying that you can go home after the end-of-term summary ceremony today, so I wanted to drop by and take you with me. Yen Kaichen nodded lightly, then let's go now, I don't have anything else to deal with. Lu Lirong heard their conversation, and hurriedly said to Huang Xiuan coquettishly. Aunt Huang, I also want to go with you. Huang Xiuan didn't care about that, and said, if you want to go, let's go together. A happy smile appeared on Lu Lirong's face immediately. By the way, I saw you talking with some boys from a distance just now. Are those boys your friends? Do you want to call them together? The more people there are, the more lively it will be. When Huang Xiuan approached just now, she only had time to see the backs of Wei Lizho and the others leaving. But she inexplicably felt that the figure of one of them gave her a feeling of déjà vu. Yen Kaichen clenched his fingertips, he pursed his lips, and when he was about to reject Huang Xiuan's proposal, Lu Lirong took the lead in showing her disgust unabashedly. Lu Lirong pursed her lips and said. Those few are disgusting, they are not our friends, especially that Wei Lizho and Yu Yiqing, enough. Lu Lirong, we are all classmates, let's not speak ill of others behind their backs. Yen Kaichen suddenly interrupted Lu Lirong's words severely. Lu Lirong curled her lips a little aggrieved. Seeing this, Huang Xiuan said aloud. It's really not good to speak ill of others behind their backs. We can't form this bad habit. It's a good thing for someone to speak out now. After all, as long as you remember to correct it in time, you are still a good boy. Although Lu Lirong felt resentful in her heart, she didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of Huang Xiuan, so she nodded obediently, Aunt Huang, I understand, I won't make such a mistake again in the future. Huang Xiuan's heart is like a mirror, she could see that Lu Lirong was not convinced, but she didn't say anything. After all, for other people's children, it's enough to mention a few words, and talking too much will only make people feel disgusted. She smiled and said to Yen Kaichen. Okay, let's go eat, don't make your mother wait too long. Chapter 36. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Wei Lizho and Yu Yiqing returned to the classroom, they began to pack up the things they put on the desk. Except that they have to come to school to collect their report cards later, they don't have to come to school again before the start of school. After Wei Lizho tidied up his drawers carelessly, he began to feel a little boring. He looked at Yu Yiqing beside him, and saw that the Rubik's Cube that Yu Yiqing had been playing with before was placed on the table. he felt a little itchy for a moment, and then said to Yuiching. At the same table, can you lend me your precious Rubik's Cube to play with? Yuiching was burying his head in sorting out his books. He looked up at Wei Lizho, and noticed Wei Lizhou's bored look. He took the Rubik's Cube in his hand, handed it to Wei Lizho, and said softly. You can play, but be careful, don't break it. Wei Lizho took the Rubik's Cube from Yuiching's hands, he nodded, and said, Don't worry, I know it is your precious Rubik's Cube, so I will definitely cherish it. It was the first time for Wei Lizho to get this Rubik's Cube from Yuiching's hands. After twisting it curiously for a while, he couldn't help but feel a little discouraged when he saw that he couldn't twist the complete side for a long time. Why is this Rubik's Cube so difficult? When he watched Wei Lizho play it, it looked very simple. Wei Lizho was more and more on the fence with the Rubik's Cube, and he was about to twist out a complete side. Yuiching glanced at Wei Lizho out of the corner of his eye, and a moment of helplessness flashed across his brow and eyes. Others turned the Rubik's Cube with their hands, but Wei Lizho looked like he was using his face to solve the Rubik's Cube, with expressions on his face matching each other. Seeing that Wei Lizho couldn't make up his mind, Yuiching finally couldn't help but speak a few words. Wei Lizho successfully turned his side in a short while. He smiled happily and complimented Yuiching. As expected of the outstanding student representative of our second grade, even playing a Rubik's Cube is an outstanding level. Yuiching glanced at Wei Lizho, and said, Speak directly, don't beat around the bush. Wei Lizho held the Rubik's Cube in his hands, lowered his head, and looked very humble. I beg the master to give me a good plan. How can I complete the remaining few pieces? Yuiching. If Wei Lizho, a drama star, chooses to pursue dreams in the showbiz in the future, he might just be a professional counterpart. Although Yuiching couldn't help complaining in his heart, he still followed Wei Lizho and instructed him to restore the entire Rubik's Cube step by step. The moment the Rubik's Cube was restored, Wei Lizho laughed out loud with excitement. It seems that I, Wei Lizho, may still be a good seedling who can solve the Rubik's Cube. The reason why I couldn't solve the Rubik's Cube when I was a child is probably because my sister didn't teach her well, which delayed the development of my good seedling. Yuiching finally couldn't help casting a disgusted glance at him, and even silently moved his body to the side. Seeing his reaction, Wei Lizho immediately approached him dissatisfied. At the same table, what do you mean? Yuiching said softly. People are valuable to have self-knowledge. Yi Panbai sat in the front row and heard their conversation. He turned around with a smile, and teased Wei Lizho. Did you hear that, Wei Lizho, what a good seed. Wake up, stop dreaming. The corners of Wei Lizhou's lips raised, he smiled at Yi Panbai, and said slowly. Yi Panbai, you said that hitting someone while sleepwalking is breaking the law. Yi Panbai pouted. Yuiching was the one who told you first, why don't you ask him this question? Wei Lizho looked confident. Yuiching is my tutor for extra lessons. I am such a respectful person, how can I do such a disrespectful thing? Yi Panbai rolled his eyes at him. I believe in your evil. You are partial. Wei Lizho laughed. Don't tell me if you see it. In the front row of the classroom, Yu Weiyun was packing up his things alone. Hearing the laughter and noise from Wei Lizhou's place, he couldn't help but turn his head and look over. Seeing the lively scene of Yuiching being surrounded by Wei Lizho and Yi Panbai, his eyes seemed to be pricked by a needle for an instant, and he felt that this scene was extremely dazzling. Thinking of the dazzling picture of Yuiching standing on the stage at the end of term summary ceremony just now, Yu Weiyun's heart was even more distorted, and the strong jealousy even seeped into his blood. Yu Weiyun didn't want to be in front of Yuiching at this time. He didn't want to see Yuiching's proud appearance, but when he went out in the morning, Yu's mother specially told him to call Yuiching who hadn't come home all this time. As soon as Yu Weiyun walked over, Wei Lizho and Yi Panbai immediately stopped their joking and fighting, and looked at Yu Weiyun one after another. Seeing their reactions, Yu Weiyun felt that the reason why they didn't like her so much was because of Yuiching. This made his resentment towards Yuiching even stronger. Yu Weiyun took a deep breath in her heart, suppressing her turbulent emotions. He stood in front of Wei Lizhou's table, looked at Yuiching who was sitting by the window on the inside, and said in a gentle voice. "Brother, it's winter vacation now, Mom asked me to call you home today." Yuiching's thin lips parted slightly, and he refused indifferently. "I have no intention of going back." Yu Weiyun looked worried. During the winter vacation, the school dormitory is not open. "If you don't go home, where else can you go?" Wei Lizhou immediately said. "My family, my parents welcome Yuiching very much, and the room Yuiching lived in before is still reserved for him." Yu Weiyun's eyes drooped when he heard the words, and a bit of gloom and jealousy quickly flashed in his eyes. What he can't see the most is that Yuiching always pretends to be cold and indifferent, tricking people like Wei Lizhou to stand up for him. If Yuiching really doesn't care about fame and wealth, why does he stick with rich young masters like Wei Lizhou and Yi Panbai all day long? Isn't he just trying to get something from them? Yuiching glanced at Wei Lizhou, seeing his positive expression, helplessness flashed in his eyes. He looked up at Yu Weiyun, and said calmly. "I have already rented a house outside, so no matter who it is, there is no need to call me back, I have my own place to live." Yuiching didn't want to see them keep appearing in front of her under the guise of caring. Hearing what Yuiching said, Yu Weiyun said perfunctorily. "I know, I will tell my parents." He is annoyed when he sees Yuiching now, and he hopes that Yuiching will not block his eyes at home. Just as Yu Weiyun was about to turn around and return to her seat, she heard Wei Lizhou's voice excitedly asking Yuiching. "At the same table, is the house you rented big? Can I go to your place to play?" Yi Panbai was also a little curious, and echoed. "I want to go too, how about we have a new house checked at IN party?" Ling Heek. "If you want to go, call me." Seeing the scene of them chatting and laughing around Yuiching, Yu Weiyun was instantly jealous, and the resentment in his heart suddenly couldn't be held back. Out of the corner of his eye, he suddenly caught a glimpse of the Rubik's Cube placed on Wei Lizhou's table. His eyes paused, and he immediately recognized that it was the Rubik's Cube that Yuiching had been playing with since childhood. Yu Weiyun had a flash of inspiration. He remembered that Yuiching liked this broken thing the most since a long time ago, and he hugged it all day and never let go. He turned around and made a gesture to leave. With a random flick of his hand, he swung the old faded but well preserved Rubik's Cube to the ground. With a snap, the Rubik's Cube fell heavily on the floor of the aisle, and many cracks appeared on the smooth surface of the Rubik's Cube instantly. The smile on Wei Lizhou's face instantly faded. He looked at the Rubik's Cube on the ground with a cold face, and then raised his eyes to look at Yu Weiyun. His eyes instantly had a biting chill as if ice had been quenched. Yu Weiyun picked up the Rubik's Cube on the ground and put it back on the table. With a guilty look on his face, he said, "I'm really sorry, I accidentally touched it on the floor. I was so careless, why did I just do this?" Careless. Yu Weiyun looked at those ugly cracks on the Rubik's Cube, and felt a little gloating in his heart. But he pretended to be guilty on his face, and said to Yuiching. "Brother, this Rubik's Cube looks very old, why don't I buy a new one to compensate you? Or two are fine, just treat it as a treat for me, Madaha's punishment." The moment the Rubik's Cube fell to the ground, Yuiching felt that the string of reason in his brain was suddenly broken with a boom. He seemed to have lost something most important at this moment, and his heart suddenly felt empty. But all internal organs are filled with raging anger. He stood up abruptly, walked to Yu Weiyun's table, picked up Yu Weiyun's wristwatch on the table, and slammed it on the ground. There was a loud pop, and everyone in the class fell silent instantly, looking at Yuiching dumbfounded. Yuiching used to always look calm and composed, as if nothing could move him. This was the first time everyone saw Yuiching showing such a fierce reaction. When Yu Weiyun saw the wristwatch that was smashed on the ground, he rushed to the ground anxiously, and picked it up distressedly. Seeing that the glass surface of the watch was full of scratches and the hands inside had stopped rotating, Yueyun's eyes were reddened instantly with anger. He raised his head to look at Yuiching, and asked hoarsely. Yuiching, what are you crazy about? Yueyun was so angry that his eyes were on fire. This watch was given to him by Zhu Jinyang, and Yueyun cherished it very much. When he received this watch before, he deliberately showed it off in front of Yuiching. Yuiching looked at Yueyun indifferently, so when the things you like are destroyed by others, you will also feel uncomfortable. Yueyun looked aggrieved. You crazy. I even said I didn't do it on purpose. Yuiching's thin lips curled slightly, revealing a mocking sneer. He has seen Yueyun's face many times. All his things, once Yueyun is displeased, will always be damaged in the end due to various accidents. When Yuiching was young, he still believed what Yueyun said was true, but after a lot of times, he understood that all this was not accidental, but an inevitability arranged by Yueyun. Yui cleared his voice and said to Yueyun indifferently. I didn't do it on purpose, I just bumped into your watch accidentally. Yuiching's apology was obviously not distracted, and he directly stated that he was taking revenge. Yueyun saw that the most precious watch around him had broken down like this, so he had no choice but to accept the reality. He began to think about how to recover his greatest loss. Yueyun said to Yuiching. It was my fault that I broke your Rubik's Cube. I will compensate you with a Rubik's Cube. But if you broke my watch, shouldn't you be responsible? Yueyun guessed that Yuiching should have received a lot of supplementary tuition for Wei Lizho before, otherwise how could he have the money to rent a house? Before Yuiching could speak, Wei Lizho walked over with the Rubik's Cube, stood beside Yuiching, looked at Yueyun and said, Do you know how much this Rubik's Cube costs? An ominous premonition suddenly emerged in Yueyun's heart. Wei Lizho continued. This is a limited edition Rubik's Cube released by the TG family 13 years ago. It was priced at 100,000 at that time. What is the price of your watch? Let's calculate together, who will lose the most? A little panic flashed in Yueyun's eyes. The watch in his hand was about the same price as the Rubik's Cube. Without thinking about it, Yueyun blurted out a lie. Yuiching picked up that Rubik's Cube from the trash outside. How could it be so expensive? Yueyun expected that Yuiching would not remember the origin of the Rubik's Cube. Yueyun couldn't help feeling scared when he thought that the junk that Yuiching played with since he was a child would turn out to be such an expensive luxury. Wei Lizho believed in his own judgment on the Rubik's Cube. He looked at Yueyun coldly and said, If you don't believe it, we can ask people from TG to come and appraise it. Yueyun suppressed the panic in his heart, and his expression softened in an instant, and said. Let's leave it at that, and I don't want to go to war too much. I admit that I was sorry for Yuiching first. If it wasn't because of me breaking his Rubik's Cube won't cause him to drop my watch. We both break one thing, so it's even. It's all holidays, why are you still dawdling in the classroom? Are you not looking forward to the holidays, or what's going on? The homeroom teacher saw that the people in the class were still lingering, so she walked in and asked. Seeing the homeroom teacher came, Yuiching didn't want to continue pestering her. After all, he had already taken Yueyun's wristwatch for revenge. After returning to his seat, Wei Lizho handed the Rubik's Cube to Yuiching. His voice was full of self-blame. I'm sorry. Although Yuiching was a little depressed, when he heard Wei Lizho's apology, he had some doubts on his face. Why are you sorry for me? Wei Lizho pursed his lips, lowered his eyes in annoyance, and said guiltily. If I didn't borrow that Rubik's Cube from you, or let you put it away after playing with it, it will still be fine now, and it won't change. Be like this. Right now, Wei Lizho really wished that he could get on the space-time shuttle, go back 10 minutes ago, and hide the Rubik's Cube properly. Yuiching looked up at Wei Lizho, and saw that Wei Lizho's bright eyes were full of frustration and guilt. Although the Rubik's Cube was damaged, Yuiching was in a very depressed mood at this time. But seeing Wei Lizho's appearance, his heart softened suddenly. He put his hand on Wei Lizhou's shoulder lightly, his voice softened rarely, "It's not your fault, don't take the responsibility you shouldn't bear on yourself." If it was usual, Wei Lizhou saw the extremely cleanliness Yuiqing take the initiative to make physical contact with him, he would definitely show off to Yi Panbai or make fun of Yuiqing in various ways, but now he doesn't feel any interest at all, just whispers, sounded. Seeing the appearance of the two of them, Yi Panbai couldn't help cursing in a low voice, "Yu Weiyun is a damned man, he is simply a disaster, and it will be bad to see him." Ever since that day, even though Wei Lizhou was at home on vacation, he still looked unmotivated. When he thought of the Rubik's Cube that Yuiqing cherished for so many years, it was destroyed like this, he instantly felt so depressed that he didn't want to do anything. Seeing that he was in such a bad mood, Wei Lizhou guessed that Yuiqing, as the person involved, might be even more disappointed than him. On this day, Lu Yiru happened to follow Wei Xingnan home. Wei Xingnan was going to take Lu Yiru up to the second floor, but she glanced at the living room on the first floor, and saw Wei Lizhou paralyzed on the sofa with a look of lovelessness on his face. Wei Xingnan walked to the side of the sofa, raised his foot and kicked Wei Lizhou's calf. "What's the matter with you these days?" Wei Lizhou raised his eyelids to look at her and Lu Yiru, and said weakly. "Even if I tell you, you can't help me." Wei Xingnan laughed dumbfounded, and said. "Tell me first, if you don't say it, why can't we help you?" When Wei Lizhou thought about it, there was some truth to this statement. He rolled his carp, sat up straight, and said judo to Wei Xingnan and Lu Yi. "I want to make someone happy." Wei Xingnan had a gossiping face. "Do you like that person?" Wei Lizhou jumped up from the sofa instantly in fright. "How is it possible? What nonsense are you talking about?" Wei Xingnan. "Your ears are red. This is because you are angry." Wei Xingnan smiled. "Okay, just take it as being angry with me. Go on, why do you want to make that person happy?" Wei Lizhou frowned in confusion, "Because he has a very important thing, which was broken." Wei Xingnan. "There are very few unique things in this world. You may consider giving him something exactly the same." Wei Lizhou's eyes lit up, it seemed like a good proposal. Although Wei Lizhou had the same Rubik's Cube when he was a child, but he has long since disappeared, Wei Lizhou asked Wei Xingnan. "Sister, do you know any collectors who collect TG's products?" Wei Xingnan looked at Lu Yiru. "It seems that you can help me with this problem." Lu Yiru smiled, and said to Wei Lizhou. "If what you are looking for is the limited edition Rubik's Cube from TG, I can give you the contact information of a collector. You can try to contact him and ask him about it." Lu Yiru had heard people from the disciplinary association mention what happened to Yuiqing a few days ago. When Wei Lizhou heard what Lu Yiru said, he instantly became excited. "Senior Lu, you are simply my benefactor." Lu Yiru smiled, and gave Wei Lizhou the contact information of that luxury collector. Chapter 37. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Wei Lizhou contacted the luxury collector Lu Yiru mentioned, he learned from him that he really owned the Rubik's Cube from TG, so he hurriedly spent money to buy the Rubik's Cube. Because he was worried that the Rubik's Cube would be damaged during the express delivery, Wei Lizhou specially made an appointment to meet in the luxury store opened by the collector. As soon as Wei Lizhou entered the shop, he saw that the collector was already sitting on the sofa in the rest area of the shop waiting for him. Wei Lizhou walked towards him, and after taking the black velvet gift box containing the Rubik's Cube from his hand, seeing that the Rubik's Cube in the gift box was indeed the one he was looking for, he said to the middle-aged man in front of him neatly. "The Rubik's Cube, no problem, I'll go first." After Wei Lizhou finished speaking, he got up from the sofa and planned to walk towards the door of the store. "Wait." The middle-aged man hurriedly called Wei Lizhou to stop. Wei Lizhou turned his head with some doubts. "What's wrong?" Difficulty appeared on the middle-aged man's face. He looked at Wei Lizhou and said, "There is a gentleman who wants to see you. He asked me to stop you." Wei Lizhou looked puzzled. "Who is it?" Sorry, I am late. Wei Lizho turned his head to look at the door of the shop. A middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes, with dignified features and stern eyes pushed open the glass door of the shop and walked in hastily. When the collector saw the figure of the visitor, he greeted with a smile, "Mr. Yen, you are here. If you don't come again, I will feel embarrassed to stop this little guest." The visitor nodded his head in greeting to the collector, and explained. "Sorry, the plane is late, and the car broke down suddenly on the way from the airport." Obviously, the visitor had just returned to Haicheng by plane, and rushed here as soon as he got off the plane. The collector Chow Wei Lizho introduced. "This is Mr. Yen Daichuan, he is the one who asked me to keep you." Wei Lizho nodded, although he was still confused and didn't understand what this person wanted to do with him. The collector wisely stood up, left the resting place, and gave the place to them. Wei Lizho looked at the middle-aged uncle sitting opposite him, and asked aloud, "Uncle, what do you want from me?" Yen Daichuan's voice was deep and magnetic, "I want to buy that Rubik's Cube from you." "Impossible." Wei Lizho immediately refused, and he subconsciously squeezed the velvet gift box containing the Rubik's Cube. Yen Daichuan stared at Wei Lizho, "I can give you 10 times the price." Wei Lizho stood up and said, "If you have nothing else to do, I'll leave first." It is impossible for him to sell this Rubik's Cube to others for money. Seeing Wei Lizho's firm attitude, Yen Daichuan clenched his fingertips and said, "You can set a price at will." Wei Lizho looked at Yen Daichuan and said, "I don't know why you want this Rubik's Cube. But this Rubik's Cube is of great significance to me, so I can't give it to you." Hearing what Wei Lizho said, Yen Daichuan couldn't help showing a bit of loss on his calm face. Seeing his appearance, Wei Lizho softened his heart instantly, and said, "Maybe you can find other people who have the same Rubik's Cube. If you offer such a high price, they will probably agree to you." Yen Daichuan frowned slightly, and Chow Wei Lizho explained in a low voice. The global production of this Rubik's Cube was very small back then, and there are only a handful of them that can be preserved to this day. He had also searched for this Rubik's Cube before, but he couldn't find any news. After finally finding this collector, he found that someone had preempted him. Thinking of this, Yen Daichuan couldn't help but closed his eyes with self-blame, and sighed in his heart. The collector's store is located in the top shopping mall in Haicheng, and many people in the upper class of Haicheng will come here to shop and consume. Yen Kaichen happened to come here for dinner with a male classmate today. They walked out of the restaurant after eating. The boy smiled and said to Yen Kaichen, "I tell you a good news in advance. I heard from my dad that your uncle plans to ask you if you want to join the company and study with him after you finish the college entrance examination next year." The boy's father is an executive of the Yen Group. When Yen Kaichen heard the boy say this, a gentle smile appeared on his face. "My uncle has always been my role model, and it is my luck to learn from him." A little thought flashed in the boy's eyes. He smiled and teased Yen Kaichen. "You will be the heir to be of the Yen Group in the future. If you take over the company at that time, don't forget to cover me." Yen Kaichen replied with a smile. "What nonsense are you talking about? It's not even a word. It's too early for you to say this now." The boy was about to speak back to him, when out of the corner of his eye he suddenly saw the picture in the shop in front of him. He froze for a moment, and hurriedly said to Yen Kaichen, "Look at the person in the shop in front, is it your uncle?" Hearing this, Yen Kaichen raised his eyes and saw that the person standing opposite his uncle was actually Wei Lizho. A bit of shock flashed in his eyes, and he said to the boy, "I'm going to find my uncle, you go home first bar." Before the boy could reply, Yen Kaichen hurriedly walked towards the shop. He clearly remembered that his uncle was still on a business trip, so why did he come back suddenly? In the shop, Yen Daichuan was still not reconciled to just miss it. He pursed his lips, and said to Wei Lizho again, "Is there anything you want? Or your wish can be fulfilled?" Wei Lizho frowned distressedly. "This Rubik's Cube is really important to me, no matter what the conditions are, I will not give it up. After Wei Lizho finished speaking, he was about to get up and leave when he heard Yan Kaiken's voice behind him. Uncle, why are you here? Yan Kaichen walked up to Yan Daichuan with a smile, and greeted him cordially. Seeing Yan Kaichen appearing, Yan Daichuan also had a slight smile on his face. But thinking of the fact that he missed the Rubik's Cube, the smile was fleeting again. Wei Lizho was a little shocked when he heard Yan Kaiken's words, so you two are relatives. Wei Lizho suddenly felt that the world is so small, it can happen to him. From Wei Lizho's words, Yan Daichuan heard that he seemed to know Yan Kaichen, so he asked, do you two know each other? Yan Kaichen smiled and said, Wei Lizho and I are classmates at the same school. Hearing this, Wei Lizho couldn't help curling his lips. When Yan Daichuan heard that the two of them were classmates, he still had the idea that maybe Yan Kaichen could intercede for him, but when he saw Wei Lizho's reaction, he suddenly stopped thinking and sighed in regret. Seeing that Yan Kaichen came, Wei Lizho didn't want to stay here any longer, so he said to Yan Daichuan, I'm going first, see you later. Yan Daichuan watched Wei Lizho's leaving back, and stared disappointedly at the velvet gift box in his hand. After Wei Lizho left, Yan Kaichen looked at Yan Daichuan, and asked in a caring voice. Uncle, why did you meet my classmate? He is notoriously quick-tempered in our school, are you not mad at him? Yan Daichuan waved his hand, his temper in front of me is okay. It's just that I want to buy that Rubik's Cube from him, but he refuses to agree. The Rubik's Cube. Yan Kaichen frowned in confusion. Yan Daichuan nodded, and Chao Yan Kaichen explained. You were young at that time, so you probably have no memory, but Xiaodo used to like the Rubik's Cube the most. Hearing the nickname, Xiaodo, Yan Kaiken's heart sank. Yan Daichuan and his wife once had a little boy, but the child was lost when he was 4 years old, and 13 years have passed since now, and they have not been found yet. Yan Daichuan seemed to be thinking of the beautiful picture in his memory, with an obvious smile on his face, and said to Yan Kaichen. Can you imagine a little guy who can't even walk steadily, but can hold a Rubik's Cube all day long? Are you happy? It's because Xiaodo clings to the Rubik's Cube all day long, so I gave him a Rubik's Cube on his 4th birthday. Speaking of this, the smile on Yan Daichuan's face suddenly subsided. Because the day the child disappeared, it was with the Rubik's Cube that he disappeared. They searched the entire Haicheng at that time, but they still couldn't find the child. In that period when surveillance was not developed, after the child disappeared, it seemed as if he disappeared from this world. The couple have searched for so many years, all supported by one breath. Yan Daichuan looked at Yan Kaichen, and suddenly asked. After you go to college, do you want to consider coming to the company to help uncle? Yan Daichuan thinks that Yan Kaichen is very smart, and if Yan Kaichen can inherit the big business of the Yan family in the future, it will be a good thing for the company. Yan Kaichen was in a depressed mood at first, but when he heard what Yan Daichuan said, his brows and eyes flashed with emotion. After Yan Daichuan finished speaking, remembering that Yan Kaichen was only a sophomore in high school, he laughed at himself. Look at what I said, it's too early. There are still several years until you graduate from university. Yan Kaichen showed a bit of a smile on his face, and said. As long as there is something I can help, I will be happy to help you lighten the burden, uncle. Yan Daichuan smiled gratifiedly, your child has been very sensible since childhood. After a few years, you can come to the company to help, so I can spare more time to accompany your aunt to find Xiaodo's child. Hearing Yan Daichuan mention the name, Xiaodo, again, Yan Kaichen lowered his eyes were cold, and the smile just now had disappeared. Weijia. When Wei Lizho returned home, his face was full of smiles. Seeing his appearance, Wei's mother smiled and asked, Are you so happy because you have to go to school tomorrow to get the report card? Wei Lizho. Mom, you only guessed half the answer right. Mother Wei smiled, what's the other half of the answer? Wei Lizho took out the velvet gift box he had hidden from behind, and said with a proud face. I have made such great progress in my grades these days, shouldn't I prepare a thank-you gift for my deskmate? After hearing this, Mother Wei smiled and said. It's rare that you still have such thoughts. It seems that Yui Qing did not teach you this student in vain. But, you only plan to use this gift box, don't you put a small gift bag outside. When Wei Lizho heard this, he felt that Mother Wei's suggestion was very good. He immediately said, I'm going out now to buy a suitable gift bag. Seeing that Wei Lizho was about to go out in a hurry, Wei's mother hurriedly called him, wait, it's time for dinner. It's not too late to go out to buy after dinner. When Wei Lizho heard what Mother Wei said, he had no choice but to put the buying of gift bags after the meal. After dinner, it was already dark. Wei Lizho intends to ride his mountain bike and go to the nearby shopping mall to see if there is any gift bag he wants to buy. Just as Wei Lizho pushed the mountain bike out of the garage, he saw a dark figure standing outside the fence of their garden. Wei Lizho pushed the cart and walked towards the black shadow. As soon as he approached, he recognized the black shadow as the Mr. Yen he met when he was buying the Rubik's Cube today. Wei Lizho angrily pushed the car and walked quickly towards him, and asked through the fence. In order to get the Rubik's Cube, you actually chased me to my house. Are you going too far? When Yen Daichuan saw Wei Lizho's figure appearing in front of him, a little surprise flashed in his eyes. Hearing Wei Lizho's words, he explained helplessly, you misunderstood. Wei Lizho hummed, misunderstanding. Then how do you explain why you appeared outside my garden? Yen Daichuan pointed to the tree in Wei's garden, my cat jumped on your tree. Your cat? Wei Lizho turned his head to look at the tree in his garden, and there was a little white cat squatting obediently on the tree branch, looking at them quietly. At this moment, Wei Lizho suddenly remembered that his sister had mentioned a long time ago that the head of the Yen group and his wife lived next door to their villa. Realizing that he had misunderstood someone else, Wei Lizho felt a little embarrassed. He said to Yen Daichuan, sorry, I was impulsive. It's just a small matter. Yen Daichuan didn't take this matter to heart. Wei Lizho said to Yen Daichuan. Since you are looking for your cat, then you can come in directly. Wei Lizho welcomed Yen Daichuan into his garden. Yen Daichuan walked to the tree where the kitten was squatting, and after visually measuring the height of the tree, he said to Wei Lizho, can you lend me a ladder? Wei Lizho nodded, turned around and went back to the garage to take out a retractable folding ladder. After setting up the ladder under the tree, he stepped on the folding ladder by himself. Seeing this, Yen Daichuan hurriedly said. Let me do it, lest the cat scratch you later. Wei Lizho stepped on the ladder and said to Yen Daichuan who was standing below. Uncle, don't you look at how old you are, you look about the same age as my dad. If you fall down, you can't recover as fast as our young people. Yen Daichuan. Although I know it's for my own good, why do these words sound so unpleasant? After Wei Lizho finished speaking, he climbed up nimbly with his hands and feet, and held the kitten in his arms after a while. The kitten was hugged by him, and it didn't show any resistance, but was very docile. After Wei Lizho took the kitten down, he smiled and showed off to Yen Daichuan. I have been very good with animals since I was a child, and very few animals would hate me. Wei Lizho handed the kitten to Yen Daichuan. After Yen Daichuan carried the kitten back from Wei Lizho, he suddenly looked at Wei Lizho and said, if you have time, you can come to our house for a sit-down. Wei Lizho responded unceremoniously. Okay, I'll go find the kitten to play with when the time comes. After Yen Daichuan returned to Yan's house with the kitten in his arms, Huang Xiuan came out of the living room and asked with concern, why did you go out for so long? Yen Daichuan handed the kitten into Huang Xiuan's arms, and said softly, your little ancestor went to someone else's house, and the kid next door helped her down from the tree. Huang Xiuan touched the little white cat and said with a smile, this guy sounds good. Thinking of Wei Lizho buying the Rubik's Cube ahead of him, Yen Daichuan was still a little depressed. Hearing Huang Xiuan praise Wei Lizho, he pursed his lips and said, "That's it." When Huang Xiuan heard him say this, she looked up at him strangely. "What did he do to offend you?" Yan Daichuan didn't want Huang Xiuan to know about the Rubik's Cube, so he said, "It's nothing, I just see him fooling around and think he is a monkey who can't sit still." When Huang Xiuan heard this, she looked at Yan Daichuan with disgust. "Do you think everyone is as boring as you were when you were young? Just one medical book can be read with gusto for a day." Chapter 38. You are listening at novelfull.audio. School, classroom. After receiving the final grade notice from the teacher, the expressions on the faces of the students in the class are varied and complex. Wei Lizhou's performance this time has improved a lot compared to the last time, and his ranking in the class has also begun to enter the top 20. After he got the report card, the smile on his face never came down. Facing the first grade in his grade, Yu Yiqing remained calm, without any surprise on his face. After he took his report card from the head teacher, he turned and returned to his seat. Seeing the bright smile on Wei Lizhou's face, a trace of doubt flashed across Yu Yiqing's brows and eyes. Wei Lizhou seemed a little excited today, as if he was looking forward to something. Seeing Yu Yiqing beside him looking at him, Wei Lizhou looked back pretending to be suspicious. Yu Yiqing. Yu Yiqing silently looked away. He unzipped his school bag and was about to put the report card into his school bag when he saw something suddenly added to his school bag. Yu Yiqing glanced down at the small gift bag in his school bag, then looked up at Wei Lizhou, who was pretending to be innocent beside him. "You let it go." Wei Lizhou nodded with a smile, his brows and eyes were full of joy. "The thank that you gift I prepared for you. Once sent, it will not be returned." Seeing that Yu Yiqing hadn't opened the gift bag, Wei Lizhou urged. "Hurry up and see what I gave you." Wei Lizhou expected his gift to be liked by Yu Yiqing. Yu Yiqing originally thought that Wei Lizhou might give him something like a watch, but when he opened the black velvet gift box in the gift bag and the Rubik's Cube caught his eye, he was stunned for a moment, and his heart seemed to leak suddenly shoot. Wei Lizhou found him an identical Rubik's Cube. The new Rubik's Cube was intact and lay safely in the gift box. Yu Yiqing gently picked it up from the gift box. When his warm fingertips touched the smooth and cold surface of the Rubik's Cube, his throat suddenly tightened. Yu Yiqing raised his eyes to look at Wei Lizhou, and Wei Lizhou asked him with a smile on his face. "How is it, is this thank you gift well presented?" Yu Yiqing lowered his eyes. "So you bought that collector's Rubik's Cube?" When Wei Lizhou heard the words, his face flashed with surprise. "Could you go to him too?" Yu Yiqing gave a and said, "But I was one step behind you. When I found him, he said that the Rubik's Cube had been taken away by the buyer." Although he was a little disappointed at the time, he never thought that the person who bought the Rubik's Cube would be Wei Lizhou. Hearing Yu Yiqing's explanation, Wei Lizhou smiled and said, "You are not only one step late. When I went to get the Rubik's Cube, there was someone who wanted to buy it from me at a high price. But even if you are 10.5 days late, it doesn't matter about the moon. Anyway, the same goal by different routes, and now the Rubik's Cube is in your hands." Wei Lizhou couldn't help but sighed. This Rubik's Cube is too popular. Fortunately, I have a sharp eye and a quick hand, so I grabbed it in my arms in time. Yu Yiqing pursed her lips. "This gift is too expensive. Wei Lizhou must have spent a lot of money." Yu Yiqing looked at Wei Lizhou. "How much is this Rubik's Cube? I'll transfer the money to you." Hearing Yu Yiqing's words, Wei Lizhou curled his lips. "Don't you know that talking about money hurts your feelings?" Yu Yiqing. Talking about money and hurting feelings doesn't seem to be used in this way. Seeing that Yu Yiqing was about to open his mouth to speak, Wei Lizhou hastily said, "If you really feel sorry, just promise me a request." Without the slightest hesitation, Yu Yiqing asked, "What is the request?" Wei Lizhou said excitedly, "Participate in the winter camp. Jiahai International School organizes winter camps for students during the winter vacation. Wei Lizho began to look forward to the arrival of the winter camp before the holiday. He had asked Yui Ching if he wanted to go with him, but Yui Ching refused. Wei Lizho looked at Yui Ching, and said expectantly. We haven't hung out together yet, why don't we take this opportunity to hang out together? By this time next year, we will be in our 3rd year of high school, and then we will be in the 3rd year of high school. It's not as easy as it is now. Hearing Wei Lizho's words, Yi Panbai turned around from the front with a smile, and teased Wei Lizho. You are the one who is not easy, right? Even if Yui Ching goes to the college entrance examination tomorrow, I guess it will still be no problem. Wei Lizho rolled his eyes at him in disgust. Don't interrupt, let's talk about the winter camp. Yi Panbai smiled, and said to Yui Ching. Ling Heek and I will also go to the winter camp, you might as well come together. Anyway, there is nothing to do during the winter vacation. The resort over the winter camp is very interesting, there are snow mountains over there, not only can we ski, but we can have barbecue parties and bonfires and things like that. Hearing their conversation, Ling Heek also turned to Yui and said calmly, it's good to go over there to relax and have a rest. The reason why Yui Ching rejected Wei Lizho at the beginning was because he didn't like the cold environment. But he didn't expect that even Yi Panbai and Ling Heek would join the team to persuade him. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded lightly, I'll go to the teacher to sign up later. Seeing that Yui Ching agreed, Wei Lizho smiled instantly. Now, this trip to the winter camp seems to be more interesting. When Wei Lizho walked out of the classroom, he was chatting with Yui Ching about his plans for the winter camp with great interest. Yu Weiyun walked behind them, and when he heard that Yui Ching would also go to the winter camp, he lowered his head and curled his lips. It's really annoying. Didn't I hear that he didn't sign up before, why is he going now? After Yu Weiyun walked out of the classroom, he went on a different path from Wei Lizho and the others. He walked towards Zhu Jinyang's current class, intending to find Zhu Jinyang. As soon as he walked a few steps, he happened to meet Zhu Jinyang who also came to look for him in the corridor, and Yan Kaichen was beside Zhu Jinyang. After Yu Weiyun greeted the two of them, she couldn't help complaining to them about Yui Ching's going to the winter camp. Yu Weiyun sighed, my brother's sudden appearance will probably make everyone unhappy again, and the fun will not be complete. Zhu Jinyang patted Yu Weiyun's shoulder comfortingly, don't worry, I will be by your side when the time comes, if he wants to bully you again, I will let him know that I, Zhu Jinyang, are not easy to mess with. Yan Kaichen smiled and said to Zhu Jinyang and Yan Kaichen, why don't I sign up for the winter camp too? Zhu Jinyang looked at Yan Kaichen in surprise, didn't you just say that you had already been there last year, and you don't want to go this year, and planned to go to your uncle's house to stay with them for a while? Why did you suddenly change your mind so quickly? Yan Kaichen smiled gently, and explained to Zhu Jinyang. Suddenly I think it would be nice to go to the winter camp with you. Besides, Yu Weiyun has never been to that resort, so we can just take him to have a good time. When Yu Weiyun heard what Yan Kaichen said, the smile on his face instantly grew stronger, and he said to Zhu Jinyang. It's fun when there are many people. After hearing the words, Zhu Jinyang nodded in agreement, that's right. Soon it was the day when the winter camp started. The resort was located in Beiqing, some distance from Haiqing, and the voyage was about 2 hours. Therefore, the school arranged a charter flight directly to the resort for everyone. On the plane, everyone talked and laughed, talking about their plans and expectations for the winter camp. Suddenly, a violent and harsh male voice interrupted everyone's laughter. Are you handicapped? It takes you so long to get a cup of coffee. Lu Lirong saw that the people around her were looking at her, she pulled Lu Jiahao who was sitting next to her, and said with disgust. Brother, can you keep your voice down, it's too embarrassing. Lu Jiahao's brows and eyes were heroic but somewhat violent. Hearing Lu Lirong's words, he said indifferently. Just look at it. It's because the service quality of this stewardess is not good, so I can't say a few words. The stewardess standing next to Lu Lirong's brother and sister held a cup of warm coffee in her hand. She gently put the coffee on the small table in front of Lu Jiahao, then smiled politely at Lu Jiahao, and apologized. I'm so sorry, because the needs put forward by the students are somewhat different. So our service speed will be affected, and we will work hard to improve. Wei Lizhou and Yue Qing happened to sit in the row behind Lu Jiahao's seat. Therefore, they also saw the whole process of the matter, and they couldn't help frowning. When Lu Jiahao heard the flight attendant's apology, his anger still persisted. He stood up, glanced at Wei Lizhou's dining table, and then asked the flight attendant. Then why do some people's drinks come so quickly? Mine takes so long. Are you targeting me on purpose? By some, you mean me. Wei Lizhou deliberately raised his voice and asked. Lu Jiahao snorted coldly, whoever should refer to that. Wei Lizhou couldn't help but rolled his eyes. He stood up and refuted to Lu Jiahao. First of all, I already placed the order by scanning the QR code on the app. But you called the stewardess over to follow your orders, so you placed the order at least 10 minutes later than me. There is no possibility that someone will deliberately neglect you. Secondly, I ordered Coke, but you ordered coffee, and you specifically asked for time-consuming and troublesome hand-ground coffee. If so, forget it, you also have various requirements for coffee beans and brewing water. As Wei Lizhou talked, he became more and more speechless, and deliberately said to Lu Jiahao in a strange way. Those who didn't know thought you were in some high-end coffee shop, not on a plane. Lu Jiahao was so angry that Wei Lizhou's successive rebuttals and mocking words rushed straight into his head. Seeing Lu Jiahao staring at him fiercely, Wei Lizhou was not timid at all, and even sneered, some people are anxious as if they will die of thirst if they don't drink coffee in the next second. If they are so anxious, he has hands and feet, why don't he make coffee by himself? Yi Panbai was sitting next to Wei Lizhou, and he couldn't help but nodded after hearing this, and echoed. I think the speed of the flight attendants is fast enough, there is nothing to criticize. Seeing that everyone in their cabin was looking at them, Lu Lirong felt more and more ashamed, and couldn't help pulling Lu Jiahao, brother, can you stop making trouble? You are letting others see we joke. At this time, Lu Jiahao was also said to be a little bit embarrassed. Seeing Lu Lirong dissuading him, he sternly said to Wei Lizhou. For my sister's sake, I won't argue with you. Next time if there is another similar thing, you will not be so lucky. Wei Lizhou curled his lips, but pull it down. If it wasn't for the fear of making it difficult for the stewardess to continue arguing, he would have driven this idiot to the point of autism. After Lu Jiahao died down, the stewardess who had been made difficult by him also left quickly, and the laughter just resumed in the cabin, only Lu Jiahao kept his face livid the whole time. The plane soon landed at the parking lot of the resort. When Wei Lizhou was queuing up to get off the plane, he happened to see the flight attendant who was embarrassed by Lu Jiahao at the door of the plane again. When Wei Lizhou passed by her, the stewardess suddenly handed over something. Wei Lizhou took it over and saw that it was a few warm baby stickers. The stewardess smiled at Wei Lizhou, for you and your friends, the weather here is quite cold. Thank you. Wei Lizhou felt a little embarrassed when he received a gift suddenly. After Wei Lizhou got off the plane, he sent the warm baby post to Yue Qing and Yi Panbai. Yi Panbai was shocked, I can't see it, Wei Lizhou, you still carry such a small thing. When did you become so considerate? Wei Lizhou. The stewardess just gave it to us. Yi Panbai. It's understandable in an instant, I said you, Wei Lizhou, don't seem to be such an understanding person. Wei Lizhou rolled his eyes at Yi Panbai, then handed his warm baby to Yue Qing. What for me? Yue Qing was a little puzzled. Aren't you afraid of the cold? Put this thing here, and I won't need it. Wei Lizhou noticed from a long time ago that Yue Qing seemed a little chilly. Chapter 39. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Under the blue sky, crystal clear snowflakes are falling and dancing in the air, and the whole resort seems to be covered with a white and light gauze. Wei Lizho was packing up his things in the room with Yu Yiqing at this time, and he and Yu Yiqing were still roommates during this winter camp. Knock knock knocked on the door suddenly. Wei Lizho, opened the door quickly. Yi Panbai's recognizable voice sounded outside the door. Wei Lizho walked over and opened the door, and saw Yi Panbai and Ling Heek standing outside the door. What's the rush, why is it so urgent? Wei Lizho said to Yi Panbai. Yi Panbai looked proud, today I will show you how good I am. Wei Lizho put his arms around his chest and leaned against the door frame. Good guy, why did you suddenly swell? You are too violating the scientific law of thermal expansion and cold contraction. Yi Panbai smiled slyly and said, do you dare to go outside and have a snowball fight with me? Wei Lizho instantly understood Yi Panbai's small thoughts. He sneered, and said, you see that I grew up in the south, and I haven't played snowball fights much, so you think you can beat me? Yi Panbai looked flustered. It's not me. It snows every winter in Haicheng. In front of my old master, you and Ling Heek are younger brothers. I don't bully you either, I can single out you too. Yi Panbai boasted that he had more than 10 years of snowball fighting experience than Wei Lizho and Ling Heek, two people who grew up in the south, and his snowball rolling skills were top-notch. Wei Lizho and Ling Heek looked at each other and reached a consensus in an instant. Wei Lizho held a meaningful smile, and said to Yi Panbai. But you said you want to fight too, don't go back on your word later. When Yi Panbai heard what Wei Lizho said, he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Don't you guys often have snowball fights before? Wei Lizho shook his head, that's not true, don't worry, I've only seen snow 2 or 3 times when I grow up. Ling Heek also said in a low voice. I am similar. Hearing what the two of them said, Yi Panbai felt relieved instantly, and said harshly to Wei Lizho, I'm going to forget all the old and new grudges with you today, you'd better tighten up your skin. Ever since Yi Panbai learned that Wei Lizho would come to participate in the winter camp, he has been eagerly looking forward to this day. Wei Lizho smiled and said nothing. Yi Panbai faced the combination of Wei Lizho and Ling Heek for the first time, and he was still a little confused. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Yu Yiqing who was reading a book in the room, and shouted to Yu Yiqing. Yu Yiqing, you also come to play together, come on, help us be a referee, and prevent Wei Lizho from refusing to admit defeat. Yi Panbai thought, if he really couldn't beat these two later, he would call Yu Yiqing to his side to help out. Anyway, they are all northern children, while Wei Lizho and Ling Heek are from the southern family. When Wei Lizho heard Yi Panbai's words, he also persuaded Yu Yiqing. At the same table, let's play together. You can read books anytime, and watching Yi Panbai suffer is not something you can see every day. Yu Yiqing. Although Yi Panbai didn't suffer in Wei Lizho's hands every day, but it could be said that it happened every now and then, which wasn't a rare thing. Although he was not very interested in this matter, seeing Wei Lizho and Yi Panbai looking at him expectantly, Yu Yiqing still nodded his head lightly. The four of them quickly found an open space near the resort. The clearing is covered with snow, and the clearing is surrounded by a large birch forest with tall branches. Yi Panbai's self-confidence is not blind. As soon as he came up, he directly sent a big snowball to Wei Lizho and Ling Heek, which made Wei Lizho and Ling Heek instantly covered with white hair. After Wei Lizho brushed off the snowflakes on his head, he gave Ling Heek a look, and Ling Heek nodded slightly. Ling Heek kept rubbing snowballs, hitting Yi Panbai, and kept approaching Yi Panbai. Ling Heek didn't care about the size of the snowball, as long as he thought he could smash it. He raised his hand and smashed it, constantly interfering with Yi Panbai's actions. Yi Panbai gritted his teeth angrily. For a moment he was only focused on fighting back against Ling Heek, ignoring the existence of Wei Lizho. When Ling Heek finally slowed down his attack, Yi Panbai seized the time and managed to make a big snowball. Just as he was about to throw it at Ling Heek, the collar of the down jacket round his neck was suddenly pulled away. Yi Panbai turned his head hastily, and what caught his eyes was a piece of white snow. Before he could react, Wei Lizho smiled and pressed a large handful of snow directly into his neck. Yi Panbai was shivering from the cold, and shouted angrily, "Wei Lizho!" Wei Lizho laughed and ran away in a hurry. Ling Heek and Yuiching also had smiles on their faces. After Yi Panbai shook the snowflakes off, he unconvincedly shouted at Wei Lizho and Ling Heek. "You foul! You can only make snowballs in snowball fights, you can't do this." Wei Lizho spread his hands pretending to be innocent, and sighed, "Oh, we haven't had a few snowball fights, how can we understand the rules, why didn't you mention it earlier?" Ling Heek. Those who don't know are innocent. The scene that Yi Panbai was looking forward to was not what he was suffering now. He protested to Yuiching, who was standing beside him. "Yuiching, you are the referee, you judge the reason, I strongly demand that the two of them have to stand and be smashed by me. Snowball will do." Wei Lizho also protested to Yuiching, "I don't agree, referee. Yi Panbai never said before that you can only play snowballs in snowball fights." Yuiching felt that if he didn't quell the controversy, his ears might suffer when the two of them talked to each other. Yuiching met the expectant eyes of the two, and said, "This rule can be determined from now on, but the sword of the current dynasty will not kill the officials of the previous dynasty." When Wei Lizho heard this, a smug smile appeared on his face. Yi Panbai gritted his teeth at Wei Lizho and said, "You wait for me. I must take revenge." Wei Lizho smiled provocatively at him, "Come on, Ling Heek and I are waiting for you." Yi Panbai was so angry by Wei Lizho that he bent over and rolled up a snowball, and threw it at Wei Lizho. Wei Lizho nimbly dodged to one side, and the snowball hit the birch tree behind Wei Lizho. With a pop, with a crisp sound, the snowflakes scattered in an instant. Seeing this scene, Wei Lizho looked back at Yi Panbai, and was about to laugh at him when he heard a plop sound behind him. Wei Lizho turned his head in doubt, but didn't see anything. He turned to Yi Panbai and Yuiching and asked, "Did you hear the voice behind me just now?" Yi Panbai. "Not only did I hear it, but I also saw it." Yuiching walked over to Wei Lizho. He walked under the birch tree behind Wei Lizho, and carefully brushed the snow on the ground aside. Wei Lizho looked puzzled, and squatted beside Yuiching. When he saw a black dot-headed and white dot-cheeked bird coming out of the snowdrift flapping its wings, Wei Lizho turned his head and looked at Yi Panbai, who was not far away. "Isn't the power of your snowball too terrifying? It knocked all the birds out of the trees, and made them fall into the snowdrift." Yi Panbai also walked towards them, and he rolled his eyes at Wei Lizho. "Stop talking nonsense, I'm just a little snowball, okay?" Yuiching gently lifted the little bird out of the snowdrift. He took a look at the little bird's condition and explained softly. "It probably fell from the tree accidentally because its wings were injured." Wei Lizho looked at Yuiching and asked, "Then what should we do now?" Yuiching checked the wound on the bird's wing, and said to Wei Lizho, "There is a medicine box in the drawer of the bedside table in the room, go and get it." Wei Lizho nodded, and quickly ran back with a medical kit. Perhaps feeling the kindness from Yuiching and the others, this little bird lay on Yuiching's palm very obediently, blinking its round eyes. Wei Lizho and Yi Panbai all surrounded Yuiching, watching intently as he helped Xiaonyao treat the wound. Worried that the wound would be infected by bacteria later, Yuiching lowered his head and carefully cleaned the blood and dust near the wound of its wing. Because the wound on the wing was not deep, Wei Lizho didn't wrap the wound with a bandage, but lightly applied some anti-bleeding, anti-inflammatory medicine to the wound. Seeing that its wound was no longer bleeding, Yuiching put it back in the snow. Wei Lizho. "Does this mean it's been dealt with?" Yuiching nodded lightly. "The bird's self-healing ability is not bad. It can heal this kind of injury by itself." As soon as Yuiching finished speaking, the little bird flapped its wings and flew up lightly. It landed on Yuiching's shoulder and chirped a few times lively, as if thanking Yuiching. Then, it flew slowly towards the birch forest. When the figure of the bird disappeared from everyone's sight, Yi Panbai remembered Yuiching's proficient handling skills just now, and said to Yuiching with emotion. I really didn't expect you to know this, your technique just now looks very professional. Yuiching nodded slightly. Wei Lizho glanced at Yi Panbai with distaste. What's so surprising about this, didn't you realize that he loves to hold on to medical books? Yi Panbai curled his lips at Wei Lizho. I didn't find out. You are the only one who knows him best, okay? Wei Lizho laughed and nodded. Indeed, I know a little more than you. Yi Panbai glared at Wei Lizho angrily. Ling He saw that the two of them seemed to be starting to fight each other again, so he said aloud. Go back and change your clothes, the snow is almost soaking your clothes. Yuiching also nodded in agreement. The snow has started to fall harder and harder. Upon hearing this, Yi Panbai said with some concern, this shouldn't affect the bonfire party at night, right? Wei Lizho looked up at the fluttering snowflakes, and immediately began to worry. Don't, I haven't participated in the bonfire party yet. Ling He. The weather forecast says that the snow will fall for about 2 hours, so it shouldn't affect the night. Wei Lizho. Pray that the weather forecast will be more accurate. Fortunately, as Ling He said, the heavy snow stopped after just over 2 hours, and the bonfire party at night was held as scheduled. On the snow outside the resort, everyone set up tall firewood and branches, and set up a fiery and surging fire, and the wanton jumping flames complemented the white snow. On the stage not far from the fire, a student band was playing and singing a passionate rock music. The tantalizing aroma of gourmet food is constantly wafting from the outdoor grill near the stage. The barbecue was sizzling on the iron plate, making people salivate when they heard the sound. After the candied sweet potatoes wrapped in tin foil are roasted over charcoal fire, the sweet smell gradually diffuses in the air. Wei Lizho and Yi Panbai squatted on the small bench in front of the grill, looking at the grill with sparkling eyes. Just as Wei Lizho wanted to get up and turn over the pork belly on the iron plate, he heard a loud voice not far behind him. He looked in the direction of the voice and couldn't help frowning. Lu Jiahao held a string in his hand, and the other end of the string was the bird's feet. The little bird, with a black head and white cheeks, kept pecking at the string, as if trying to bite it off. Lu Lirong was talking to Yan Kaichen beside her. But I was annoyed by the constant chirping of birds. She raised her eyes and complained to Lu Jiahao, who was standing not far from her. Brother, if you want to play with this little bird, stay away from here. Yan Kaichen and I want to have a quiet chat, but you are almost killing me. Hearing Lu Lirong's protest, Lu Jiahao complained, you only know Yan Kaichen all day long. I'm just playing with a little bird. As for being so disgusted by you. Lu Lirong. Anyway, don't play in front of my eyes, don't disgust me here. Seeing the quarrel between the siblings, the dog leg who was with Lu Jiahao said, why don't we go play somewhere else, and we don't need to be rejected here. Lu Jiahao was so angry that he was angry and wanted to kick the little bird. The bird flapped its wings and flew low instantly, dodging his flying kick. Seeing this, Lu Jiahao became more and more angry and ashamed. He looked at the little bird viciously, and said fiercely. I'll break your legs first, and then break your wings, to see if you can still fly. If you can't fly, I just roasted you and ate you. Lu Jiahao's dog leg echoed with a smile. Young Master Lu is mighty. You should let this little with no eyes see how powerful you are. It's shameless. You can only bully the weak, what kind of ability? Hearing the reprimand sounded behind him, Lu Jiahao turned around unhappily. Seeing that it was Wei Lizho, he said arrogantly. Wei Lizho, are you looking for trouble on purpose? I think you have been upset for a long time. Wei Lizho sneered, coincidentally, I've been displeased with you for a long time. Yi Panbai stood beside Wei Lizho, and he took a closer look at the little bird caught by Lu Jiahao. Then he leaned close to Wei Lizho's ear and whispered, why does that bird look familiar to me? It looks like the one we met during the day.